All right, hello YouTube. Welcome to the first book club of 2025.
Yeah.
It's funny, somebody hit me up on Blue Sky, I think, asking like, hey, like, when's your guys' next Wizard and Glass book club? And I'm like, yeah, this is probably the longest we've gone without doing a book club in quite a while.
Since 2017 with the movie. We kind of swore off book clubs that year.
Yeah, I think we only did one or two book clubs that year. But yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of news. So
I mean, between having only one episode in January is probably what killed it. Otherwise, we would have had an episode in January that was a book club. But then obviously doing the year-end bash and everything. So, yeah, it's pretty much since early December until now. So it's a long stretch, but we're back. We're ready to dive on into the lovely tale of Roland and Susan and Ermont and Rhea.
No, you were good there for a minute.
Oh, I don't know. I gotta change my pedal. I knew it was wrong. I forgot to change it over, but that would have been funny to hit the wrong intro. But let's go ahead and hit the intro and get the podcast side started real quick.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are Ka-Tet, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And it seems like my headphones aren't working quite right. How's yours?
It sounded a little bit quieter on my left. Well, this would be my right side because I have my headphones backwards.
What?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounded better for me. Yeah, the audio was coming through kind of strange. I wonder if old Oi can...
Oi?
Yeah,
it's on the right. It's on the left side for me is louder than the right side.
Very strange.
Yeah,
So-
I do it backwards so that I don't have the cord going across me during the...
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
There is a thing about balancing, but I don't know if that would have ever got changed.
Perfectly balanced as all things should be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything. That's weird, though. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, sorry about that. I was struggling to get some. But yeah, it sounds like it's. I mean, yeah, I think we're coming through okay, and I can hear myself better on the headphones. But the actual sound clip there was kind of low. So, all right. Sorry about that, guys, for always having North Central Positronics issues. That's pretty standard.
Did you forget to say something about liking or subscribing last time or something?
Yeah, probably.
Gosh dang it.
I mean, we don't have any Blaine lightning teeth yet, so
It must not be too egregious.
yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into the intro real quick. First of all, there is no spoiler warning for this episode. This is a book club, so we stay where we're at or before. We don't jump ahead. We will have a small spoiler section at the end, but you will have ample warning for that. And then if you want to find us, you can find us on Apple Podcasting. You can stream us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, or any podcasting service of your choice. You can also find us, or if you could subscribe, rate, and review us on any of those, we'd appreciate that. And then, of course, youtube.com/Dark Tower Palaver. This is where we do our live streams. If you want to join us live, you can do that every fortnight here on YouTube at youtube.com/Dark Tower Palaver. You can also find all the old stuff if you want to go back and watch old episodes. That's totally fine. The live, you obviously get more of the interactive where you could send Peter snake emojis. Thank you, Barack. You already had me covered on that. So,
Just the worst.
too bad it isn't like you couldn't just like add to it, because if it were like a wet snake like that.
Oh.
But you can join along if you are here with us live. If not, you could just kind of watch along or listen on the podcast feeds if that's the way you like to do it. But if you are over here on YouTube, if you could like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, that'll stop us from hopefully having technical difficulties. But it helps the episode as well. And then if you want to find the show notes, you can find them over at darktowerpalaver.com. We don't have a whole lot of show notes for our book club episodes. But March Insanity, this is the last episode before March Insanity kicks off on March 1st. So go to darktowerpalaver.com/March Insanity. We have 2 polls going this year. We have favorite spoken line in the Dark Tower side. And then kicking off here in 2025 for the first time ever, we're doing a non-Dark Tower Stephen King poll. Where we are starting with most hated character. So seeming like Percy is pretty high up there for nominations, at least. We'll see what happens with the vote. There's plenty of Mrs. Carmody. There's plenty of good ones on there. So very excited to be doing double polls from now on. It'll be cool to do like both Dark Tower side and non-Dark Tower because,
You just gotta get creative with emojis. That's how you do it.
See, you're getting into it. And that's good. Good old, wandering Ermot.
Cool.
Oh man! And then if you want to, so the show notes, that's all. But that's your hub for all things Dark Tower Palaver. All the links for everything Dark Tower Palaver can be found there. Show notes, questions for new listeners, all that kind of fun stuff. Find it over there at darktowerpalaver.com. If you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. There you can subscribe at a number of different levels. All the levels get access to our Patreon or our Discord server where you can chat with us throughout the week anytime, as well as we have monthly hangouts. At the highest level, you could also co-host a proper Dark Tower Palaver episode with us. And then if you want to contact us, Peter can let you know the ways to do that. Like if you want to send us any like poetry about Ermot or anything like that, you could definitely do that.
That's not allowed. That's taboo. You can email us at show@darktowerpalaver.com. And then we have our threads and Instagram. I honestly was like, what the hell is thread? I forgot about it for a minute. Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. And then our Blue Sky is at darktowerpalaver.bsky.social. And then we still have our Twitter. It's at darktowerpod. That's at darktowerpod. And then Facebook is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/users/darktowerpalaver. Pick yourself up a hashtag Tat is terrible sticker t-shirt.
You can get a classic one if you want as well. Also, I am rocking Ka-Tet 19's Wizard and Glass shirt. I just got an email last night. They're doing 19% off on Ka-Tet 19 right now. So I like to support them. They make some really cool merchandise. So maybe go hit them up. You can get this awesome, lookout shirt. It's Wizard and Glass. Because what better way to have good luck through a day than to have the overlook with you.
That is ka-tet19.net. Not .com. That's interesting.
Yeah. They make some great stuff over there. So we are, again, jumping into Wizard and Glass. We are, on the other side of the halfway point now.
Yep.
Far enough now from the halfway point, seemingly we don't really have to even talk about the halfway point anymore because it's in our rearview mirror a few episodes now. But we are now jumping into, we're in part 3. There are 4 parts to this book. We are in the 3rd part. The part 2 and part 3 both have 10 subchapters. We are currently in part 3, which is titled Come Reap. And we are in chapter 4, which is titled Roland and Cuthbert. And last couple episodes, I feel like we've been able to cover entire chapters. This is the first one in a minute where we won't be able to. I do believe that this chapter, we should hopefully be able to cover in 2 episodes. But it is a longer chapter. So, we know that last we heard, I've got to jog my memory, but I believe Jonas was talking about going and making a visit to Bar K.
Yeah, he was in Coral's room with her after having a night with her.
Yeah.
And said to his guys that it's time to go out to the Bar K, but they're going to go out to Sitco and round up a bunch of guys and watch out there, right?
Yeah, and then the boys talked to the town leadership and told them that they were going to move over to the ranch side.
From the horseman's side.
Horses and stuff. But they would give them a detailed schedule, which was an idea from Cuthbert. So
that they'd be able to move things around and not, be that obvious that they have way more than they said they would.
And then it doesn't necessarily narrow it down, but we also had the biggest blow up to this point between Cordelia and Susan. But it feels like you could have said that about a number of episodes because it just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah, each one is worse than the last one.
Yeah.
And then one last thing is that Rhea remembered her.
She had forgotten about Susan. Yeah, because
I was trying to think of the way to put it.
The ball had gotten her so worked up, as well as Ermot, getting her She had a lot of distractions, but she was reminded in the last episode that she still had Susan as a dangling thread out there.
And sent the note to send the boy. Is what it said to Coral at the tavern.
Yeah,
so.
to get more graph.
Yeah.
So and that's where we leave off going into chapter 4, which is titled Roland and Cuthbert, which that is you would think that'd be a fun title, but the way that things have been going.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
that's how you feel.
I don't think you necessarily look at that and think, oh, this is going to be a great locking arms and doing something great. Because there's been a lot of strife between these two. So.
And it just goes to show it here in Subchapter 1 that we get more.
Yeah, are you showing good on the thing? I'm getting that showing the error on my side again.
Yeah, we're showing
good. Showing like we're streaming, but the picture isn't there and it says error.
Yep.
YouTube is of course being terrible to me. So all right. Good.
Yep. There's me giving the thumbs up and everything. So yeah, we're good.
I guess I got to refresh, which means my chat will get all weird. So, but go ahead. You're starting.
I'm starting us off with Subchapter 1. Roland, Cuthbert, and Alain came out onto the porch about 2 hours after Jonas left Coral's room, and the sun was well up over the horizon. They weren't late risers by nature, but as Cuthbert put it, they weren't lazy. They're just loungy, and they got to keep up that reputation of being, kind of like. Well, we're not waking up at like noon, but we're not waking up at 5 a.m. kind of thing.
Well, in this age, I was kind of one of those. If I was left to my own devices around this age, I was definitely sleeping till probably 10 at the earliest. That was like getting up early, and noon to 1 o'clock was a lot more normal.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And then staying up until 4 in the morning, kind of thing.
Yes. King takes some of the blame for that.
He does.
King had me lose some nights of sleep, not because he upset me or anything, but because I couldn't stop fucking turning pages.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, one more chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop at the end of this chapter, and then the cliffhanger at the end of the chapter. You're like, well, fuck, now I got to keep going.
Yeah. So King takes some blame.
Yeah, some blame. Halo takes a lot of blame too.
Yeah.
Roland stretches and causes his back to pop, and Alain says he hates that noise. He sounds morose and sleepy, and he had been troubled by bad dreams and premonitions all night. Cuthbert says that's why Roland does it and tells Alain to cheer up. He's too handsome to be downhearted. Roland starts to cross the yard and stops halfway across so abruptly that Alain almost runs into him. Oh, he says in a funny, bemused voice with a little smile. Cuthbert echoes Roland and asks, what is it, great leader? As if, oh joy, we shall see a perfumed lady, or oh rats, I must work with smelly male companions all day. Alain is so uncomfortable that he looks down at his boots instead of at his friends. He is sure Roland will snap at Cuthbert one of these times because Cuthbert's teasing these days has an edge to them. He expects Roland to flash up like flint on steel and send Bert sprawling, and in a way Alain kind of wished for that to happen because it just might clear the air.
Sorry, I was messing with some sound stuff. It's still bothering me. So my first note here, so Roland either spotted Jonas or is getting some premonition from the touch. It's jumping ahead a bit, not outside of this episode, but later on we're going to see that Roland is aware of what's about to happen, and he is clearly, in this moment, is him figuring something out.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I think later we find that Jonas is a ways away, so I don't know if he would have seen him.
It says it here in just like I think one subchapter.
Yeah. So, but either way, he's got some kind of premonition of what's to come. It seems so.
Yeah. And then Alain is right. Sometimes the only way to solve an issue is just to have it out. Like I understand that there's the whole like. Well, we're gonna try and be diplomatic and everything, but sometimes, man, you just gotta fucking fight.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is what it is.
Especially kids of that age.
Oh
that are all hormonal
we're
and
talking
stuff.
what, 14, 15 years old here?
Yeah,
absolutely, you have to. So going on, but it doesn't happen this morning. Roland just says, "Oh," and continues toward the stables. Cuthbert says he would like to speak again about the pigeons, even if Roland doesn't want to hear it, and that he wants to send a message. Roland cuts him off mid-sentence and says he'll make Cuthbert a promise. He smiles while saying this. Cuthbert doesn't trust him and says, "I?" And Roland tells him that if he still wants to send a message tomorrow morning, they will. He can write it and choose the bird to send himself. And then he asks Cuthbert, is that fair? Cuthbert does say it is fair and thanks Roland. Then Roland said something that struck Alain as very odd and made the prescient part of him quiver and disquiet, which is predicting the future, I think, is what that means. I just don't know how.
Prescient,
you have a feeling, right?
Yeah, and it's very apt for for the time. Yeah.
And we know that Alain has the touch, so that part of him is feeling this, it's like slight quiver and disquiet. And Roland says, "Don't thank me yet," and that's the end of the subchapter. That's how we start here in this section called Roland and Cuthbert.
Yeah. And my note here, dirty pool by Roland. After he either spots or senses Jonas, he then promises Bert this, knowing full well it's probably not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that's a dirty trick.
Dude, that's fucked up.
That's yeah, and you see that in like media all the time too, where like someone knowingly like makes a promise that they know they won't have to fulfill.
Absolutely, kids. We will definitely go to that water park next time it's open.
Yeah.
It closes for the summer that day.
Yeah, pretty much. So that
dirty pool, Dad.
Yeah, dirty tricks, indeed. So let's jump on over to Subchapter 2. Yep. Sheemie is begging Coral Thorin that he does not want to go up there, as an unusual expression has creased his normally smooth face, a fearful and troubled frown. He then says that she is a scary lady and she has a wart right on her nose, and Coral says, Coral probably would have chewed him out the day before, but she was a lot more patient today. She agrees with what he said, but said that she had requested him specifically and that she tips well. He answered that it would not be helpful if she turned him into a beetle, and beetles cannot spend coppers. So, also Frank's performance on these lines is pretty great.
Yeah.
Also, I did find it funny. I think I forgot to mention the last couple episodes, but you're in that weird spot where we were doing a book club while you're reading through the series right now. That's always kind of a weird thing. Every time it happens, it's happened to me a couple times over the years, and it's always strange because then you're like suddenly either like way before where we're at, or then you breeze by it and you're just like, it's weird. Then when you're doing the book clubs, because you're like,
we were until last week when I finished. So,
well, yeah, but there would have been like 2 or 3.
Yeah, there was quite a few episodes, and there was the point where I crossed. I'm like, oh, this is the book club from last week.
Yeah, indeed. So my note, this makes me laugh. Like I feel for Sheemie, and it's messed up to send him, but after all, did Rhea really request him because she wanted him, or because he's usually the one that would be sent, right?
Probably the errand boy, right?
Yeah, exactly. More the errand boy. It's like, so with like Cordelia, Coral. Cordelia is much worse. But Coral, I feel like that's kind of like a technicality. It's like, yeah, she said send the boy, but it's like, would she really care if it was someone else? I don't think so.
No.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's more dirty pool here.
I honestly put this on Rhea. It wouldn't surprise me if she asked for him special because she knows how scared of him he is.
Yeah.
And she just is like Pennywise and just eats his emotion and just... it's tasty when he's scared of me,
Yeah.
Dude, could you really not put that past Rhea?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
Also, Baraki put another emoji version in there.
Of the snake with the water? No.
Surrounding it.
Gross.
Maybe even encompassing it.
Gross.
So despite his protests, he allowed himself to be led to the inn's pack mule, Caprioso. Barky had loaded 2 small tons over the mule's back. One was filled with sand, and it was only there for balance, and the other was filled with fresh pressing of the graft that Rhea liked. Coral told Sheemie that Faraday was coming, and it was not 3 weeks away now. He agreed with happiness. He loved Faraday with the passion, the lights, the firecrackers, the dancing and the games, the laughter. When Faraday came, everyone was happy, and no one spoke mean. So tick, 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 here we are again. We are now under 3 weeks to reap. King once again reminding us of the clock. Again, like, yeah, you kind of had like Roland's like withering away in book 2. That was kind of a ticking clock, but like that was more of like you just got to get to like some sort of like point before he dies.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, there's something ominous in the distance that's coming. Like that. This is
very, very much a bomb with a ticking timer.
Yeah.
Versus book 2 where it's like, man, I hope they can reach there before, that bad thing happens.
Yeah.
This one is very much you're not stopping this.
Yeah.
This is going to happen.
I've seen some great movies that have done this kind of thing too, where like they won't tell you necessarily what, but they'll say like 2 weeks until something, and fill in the blank, right?
2 weeks until emergence.
But
something like that.
Sometimes they'll be very obscure about what that means. But it's like when you're right away at the start of a movie being told like 2 weeks away, it's like, oh God, what are we counting down to? I want to say maybe Independence Day is like that. Doesn't it say something like 2 days or whatever?
It's the aliens have they decode it, and the aliens have a timer. And they're like, "What's the timer?"
Yeah.
And it's for the first time.
And that one, that one's in the universe, but there's other ones where it's out where it's just like the subtitle on the screen will just tell you, and it always throws you off because usually like they'll give you a time, but it's usually like, oh, here's where you're at in the present, not like you are 2 weeks away from some moment. Because then in your mind you're like, well, what the hell's that moment? Like, why are we counting down to that? And that's what King's been doing through this book, and it's great. And it seems like we can't go an episode without King in one way or another reminding us of how close we're getting. Of course, Sheemie loves Faraday. We've heard the last time, I think the last episode, that there's a lot of adults talking about how it brings out the kid in all of them to one extent or another. So, of course, it would be right up Sheemie's alley.
Oh, yeah.
And then that last line hurts. He recognizes the same people previously said that everyone loves Faraday, but for him, part of that observation is the truth that people are no longer cruel to him because Faraday makes them happy. Like that's kind of a rough line.
Oh yeah, like we've seen how this is just my note. We see how mean some people are to him, kicks and insults and everything like that.
Yeah,
and honestly, at least one attempt on his life.
Yeah.
In this book alone.
Yeah.
So a holiday where everyone is nice to him, that would be amazing. That's like a slice of heaven for Sheemie.
Yeah, and it's just sad that someone, he's young, but he's also got the mind of maybe a 5-year-old,
an adult mind. Yeah.
So it's like for him to have to like clock that and like know when people are going to potentially be more or less mean to him. Like that's like I said, that's kind of rough.
Yeah, exactly.
Coral says a young man with coppers in his pockets will surely have a good time at the fair, and Sheemie agreed enthusiastically as if he had just discovered one of life's great principles. Coral handed him Caprios's rope and closed his hand around it and told him to have a nice trip, to be polite to the old crow and to bow his best bow to make sure that he is back and to be sure that he is back down the hill before dark. And he agreed long before dark and shivered. She then watched as he went on up the hill with his pink sombrero clapped on his head, leading the grumpy pack mule. So that is the end of subchapter. My only note here, I would say that this is a dirty pull to manipulate him like that. But honestly, every parent does this, even in any world, in our world, in fictional worlds. Focus a kid on the positive outcome over the unpleasant chore. But I think we probably agree with Sheemie that going up that hill is probably not good, and he doesn't even know that Rhea's recent state of mind like we do. Rhea's been deteriorating quite a bit, getting a lot more nasty. Things have not necessarily gone her way. The Susan hypnotizing didn't work. The ball went silent on her for a while. There's a number of reasons and plus the ball we're kind of getting a vibe that it's like Lord of the Rings and it's like wearing on her like the ring does on Smeagol, right?
I always take it that not only is the ball wearing on her, I believe that, but I believe also to more extent than beyond that. I don't think the ball's taking that much from her. I think that it's just taking so much of her time that she's not eating, she's not sleeping, she's not bathing. And when you don't do those things, the human body deteriorates. You want to see it, go look at some Holocaust pictures. That's what happens to the human body when it's neglected like that. So that's what Sheemie's heading towards.
What was the Christian Bale movie where he lost like a shit ton of weight? It was the one he did right before Batman.
That's The Pianist.
No, that's
Adrian
Brody. Yeah,
The Machinist. I think that's what
Is that
it's
what
called.
it was? Because I remember that he had like that massive loss of weight and he became like really emaciated. Then his next movie was Batman where he had to bulk up and stuff. So it's kind of one of those.
The Machinist.
It's one of those
2004.
One of those yo-yoings that these actors do. So.
Yeah, a machinist in a factory. Extreme case of insomnia has led to him not sleeping for a year. And his body is withering away.
That seems pretty apt. What you're saying.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm just like talking about. She's not eating, sleeping, or taking care of herself. That's what that is.
Plus, she's a witch.
I mean, and she's got a wart on her nose, which is just unforgivable.
I've said it again. I picture her as the crone from what is that? Snow White.
Yeah,
that's how I picture. That's how I've always pictured.
Yeah,
her.
the evil queen when she.
No, the witch that gives her the apple.
Yeah, that's the queen that shapeshifts.
No, I haven't seen it in like 30 years. I just remember the old hunched over.
Yeah,
little creature.
Yeah, that's the queen. She can't stand it. Yeah,
that's Rhea in my mind. That's what I picture.
Oh yeah,
so.
I mean that's a witch, right? Like,
But I mean, there's different kinds of witches. Some of them look, different, and I don't know, just like the withered, hunched over old hag. Like that's what I picture with Rhea.
Yeah.
So Baraki says The Machinist is a masterpiece.
I've never seen it.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen it back when it came out, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
I mean, we're talking the year we graduated high school, for God's sakes. So that's a long time ago.
And then like I don't know. I feel like I get some of those movies in that era of his mixed up, so I was forgetting which one it was that he lost all the weight for.
Yeah,
I just remember there was like the big thing where he was talking about how he had to I think he even did his audition and he hadn't fully got to his core weight yet.
Yeah,
let alone the fact that you have to bulk up like 50-60 pounds
to become Bruce.
Yeah. So
there's more than one there for Christian Bale too, because he was big before The Machinist for another role. So I think there's 4 or 5 that they show where he went up and down for like a decade and a half, just going back and forth between weights. It's crazy.
Yeah. Baraki says, I picture her as Mommy Fortuna from The Last Unicorn, and Googling that, that's... oh,
really?
That's pretty close, actually.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Does she have a tree on her head?
I don't know, but that
right.
definitely has a Rhea look for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad that we all kind of agree. I will say the comic books don't really make me happy. I don't like how they did Rhea. I mean, I do know that the more famous picture of her from the comics is like early on, like early in the story. But I don't know. I just always picture her a little bit like more witchy than what the comics did. So
yeah.
I like most of the comic stuff, but that Rhea just doesn't jive with what I always pictured her as.
Oh yeah, she kind of looks like like that picture right there. She looks like she's in the Salem witch trials, like the black hood and everything like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, subchapter 3. Jonas waited on the flank of the ridge on his belly in the tall grass until the brats were an hour gone. Then he rode to the ridge top and picked them out on the horizon, 3 dots 4 miles away, off to do their daily duty without suspecting anything. He thinks they are smarter than he gave them original credit for, but not nearly as smart as they think that they are. He rides the quarter mile to the barquet, tethers his horse near the spring where the boys had hung up some of their washing to dry. He strips the pants and shirts off of the tree and pisses on them. Jonas pulled the dog's tail from the saddlebags, and his horse stamps the ground as if happy to be getting rid of it. Jonas was happy as well, as it had started to stink. I think the word used by Stephen King is it has an aroma, which I'm just going to call a spade a spade. It stinks.
Yeah.
From his other saddlebag, he took a small glass jar of red paint and a brush. Jonas walked to the bunkhouse without trying to conceal himself, not that there was any cover anyways. And one of the boys left a book on the seat of a rocking chair on the porch. Books were extremely rare in Midworld, especially the farther from the center you were. This was the first one, aside from a few in Seafront, that Jonas had seen since coming to Mages. And I just got to pause here, because this is just really hard for me to picture this. Paper is such a common thing for us, and the entire town to go without paper is just surreal for me. I know that we've been given examples of this, and we've been dealing with this since book 2.
Yeah.
That it's paper is as rare as anything in this world.
Yeah.
But it's still just weird for me, especially in this one where it's like a Western setting. These are cowboys. Like, there's going to be like they talk about like livestock books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're probably not doing that on paper, or if they are, it's extremely rare that, hey, here's a shopping list. Just hand a piece of paper to your kid. Go down to the market and buy me this.
Yeah.
It's just it still is just like jarring for me to have that just like, whoa, like no paper, like holy cow.
And I would say I wonder is the kind of they're further from center, makes me kind of wonder if paper is scarce in this time in Roland's world, but nowhere near as scarce as it is in present Roland's world.
After the fall of Gilead.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is still paper, it's just nowhere near as it's nowhere near our society. Yeah. But there is some, like the fact that these boys are able to bring books, like if it were as rare as it was when Roland's an adult, I don't think you give even if he's a gunslinger, I don't think you give some 14-year-old kids books to take on a journey like this.
It makes you wonder what happens to all the paper in Gilead when the fall happens. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like do we have a Nazi book burning? Do we have, like, oh, these are all the books that they coveted. Like, they're not worth having the paper, kind of thing.
But
or does it just get scattered to the wind? And there's just like that's the paper of the world now.
Yeah, exactly. And but I do think that the further from center thing, though, where if there is like a paper mill, you know, that does serve Gilead, like the chances of any of the benefits of that reaching it way out here in Magus, I think is why, like Susan, you know, one of the greatest sins we learned early in the book was wasting paper.
Right.
But again, that even shows that there is paper to waste, because I feel like in Roland's time, like our present day Roland, like I just don't think that paper is even a thing he sees.
Right.
In his journey, it's just not even it's a distant memory for him, and you know, so I just kind of think that there is a deterioration that we could probably assume happened, and that paper is the
world moved on.
Yeah, the world moved on, and I think the paper is still super rare, but I'm not sure if it's like more valuable than gold right now as it will be
in this moment
when Roland's present, when it's like
in like Tull, there's no paper.
Exactly,
right? Yeah,
exactly. So I honestly I think during the course of these book clubs I've kind of come to that. I think I would have just assumed paper was greater than gold across all of time in Roland's world, but the more we've read
here
this,
we see him have a book.
Yeah, books. Again, even if he's a gunslinger, you're not going to let these kids take, if like books are like, you know,
worth their weight in gold times 10.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to let a 15-year-old kid take a book to the Outer Rim.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Sorry, Outer Arc. I my Star Wars ship there for a minute.
And Baraki says, yeah, the paper moved on with the rest. Exactly. And I think that's just cool because, like, again, I don't think I really had clocked that in any of my reads previous to this. It was only during these book clubs and really going, you know, kind of more the line-by-line way to where that really started to realize, like, oh, shit, yeah, this is way earlier in the timeline. Paper's still rare, but it's nowhere near as rare as...
Well, I think that we get a perfect example of that because... since writing this note, I've given it some thought, and us discussing it here also, I've given it some thought. Doesn't Susan go into her dad's office
ledger
in the last and has a ledger?
Yeah,
that's paper.
Yeah,
like he has paper.
Yeah,
but at the same time, he was the head horseman for the barony.
Exactly,
the barony's horses and seafront and everything like that.
Like
so
that,
it would make sense that he would have one.
But that probably belonged to the barony too.
Right, exactly. It probably didn't even belong to Pat.
Yeah, exactly.
It probably needs to be returned, honestly.
Yeah, and it moves.
Well, that's because that's where she sees the pages are torn out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I guess we don't really necessarily have a full-on head of this Horsemen's Association now, do we? Isn't it kind of nebulous of who's...
Langil.
Is it?
Yeah, he's the one that took over.
I wonder why he doesn't have the ledger then.
That's interesting to think about. Maybe he started his own ledger. That's Pat's ledger for when he was, kind of like a, okay, it's done. Close it, seal it off. It stays with him. That's kind of his time.
Yeah,
a family memento kind of thing. Like look how much good he did.
Yeah.
But then they start a new one for the new.
Yeah,
I can see that would be like an old world kind of custom, right?
Yeah, like
you don't pick up in the same book that the last one was. You start your fresh.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you want all the stock lines and everything like that? Wouldn't they? Or do they just copy them over?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's an interesting little thought.
It is definitely something that's come up multiple times in this book, though, where it's like, man, there's more paper here and there. I mean, even Rhea sending the scrap to call for Sheemie. So it's like there's been a number of paper usages where, again, like when we're in the mindset of present day Roland, like it's like, wow, that's a lot of paper, but it's still scarce. I mean, she's not sending like a whole 8x11 page on the cat.
Yeah.
She's sending a tiny little scrap. So I think they're still always going to be very conserve.
Absolutely. We'll come back to that thought in just a second.
Yeah.
Jonas opened the book, and in a firm woman's hand it read, "To my dearest son from his loving mother." He ripped this page out, and using the paint, he blotted out the word mother, and using his nail of his pinky, he wrote the word... I'm going to say it. I apologize. This is what King wrote. He wrote the word cunt. He poked the sheet on a rusty nail where it was sure to be seen, and then tore the book up and stamped on the pieces. So paper's not that precious, apparently. He hoped the book belonged to Dearborn. He then went inside where the first thing he noticed was the pigeons. He says he will get to them soon, and then they should peck and shit while they still can. Jonas looked around thinking about how the old man and Ritzy had said they might be lads or they might be lords. Either way, they were very neat, lads or lords. Each bed was made, and at the foot of each a neat pile of personal belongings. And in each of those piles, a picture of their mother. And one of the boys had both parents in the picture. He had hoped for documents, even a love letter from a girl, but there was nothing like that. He removed the pictures, shredded them, scattered the rest of the goods to all four corners of the building. He found a linen handkerchief and blew his nose on it and laid it out on the toes of the boy's dress boots, booger up so it wouldn't be missed. What could be more upsetting than coming home and finding someone else's snot on one of your personals? The pigeons were all upset by all the racket now. They tried to flutter away as he opened the cage, but he caught them easily one by one. He twisted their heads off. He put a head beneath each pillow and found a small bonus, paper strips and a storage pen. He broke the pen but kept the paper. With the pigeons taken care of, he could hear better and began walking slowly back and forth, his head cocked as he was listening.
You know, it just dawned on me. I wonder if books are less valuable because that's not useful
Blank
paper. Yeah, it's not useful paper. So maybe that could be a thing, too, that we haven't really considered.
I don't think Jonas is exactly one for curling up with a good book and a cup of tea, you know?
Yeah, but scraps of paper that you'd write on, maybe that's even, maybe that's even more rare.
Yeah.
The other thing I would mention, too, while you're reading it, also dawned on me, guns. You know, like, as we've been in present-day Roland, like, it seems like nobody's ever seen a gun before, or if they have, they're, like, super antiquated, you know, whatever. Like, that's almost a thing that when people see Roland's guns, they know whatever. Here, we see, like, these coffin hunters have guns and stuff. Like, there's
townsfolk who have guns.
Yeah, they're lesser guns than, like, what Roland will eventually have, certainly. But it's, again, there's a part of the world moving on that, like, there's more guns with the riffraff than we're going to see in the far flung future when Roland is going into Lud. Like, there's not guns there.
I think the total guns we see in Lud is 2. That's not with the Ka-Tet, not with Roland and all of them.
and it's with
TikTok.
TikTok, yeah.
He has 2 guns, right? He has the Schmauser and then a pistol, right?
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all the guns we see in Lud, and there's supposed to have been a war there. You need to tell me that all the guns stopped working or were broken or...
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah, so it's definitely a cool way that King's showed us the world moving on, is that when he's jumped into this flashback, we're seeing things less rare, not to say they're not rare, but just they're less rare than they have been up to this point in the series.
Yeah,
so.
That's a very good observation. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Is that it's if you're dialing up the rarity of something, paper and guns in book 1 through 3 are at a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
That's where I would put them.
Yeah.
Here, they're probably at a 6.
6 or 7,
yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So.
And we also got to remember, too, we are also seeing especially good, whether it be like the boys that are from, like, obviously good families, they're high up, they're lords, right? Versus, like, the coffin hunters, too. Like, these guys are dudes that have been along a lot of roads and shit, and chances are they've picked up those guns as they've gone along the way, and they're better than a lot of people they've come across. They've probably killed to get some of those guns. Even
they're alive for a reason, and Farson hired them for a reason.
Exactly.
They're not slouches.
Yeah, they're not just some random person in a saloon somewhere, like whatever. No, these are so I guess we got to remember that too. We're not necessarily looking at your average riffraff. We're looking at some, I don't know, kind of like heroic, you know, like if you think of it like the old like Star Wars Battlefront games, you have the heroes that are just they're a step above everyone else. Whether they're good or bad. So
Agamorphy makes a good point in the chat. He says Jonas would know that a book would be a precious sentimental item. Destroying that book is the equivalent of pissing on the pants. To devalue it, to show the contemptive that he feels.
Yes.
So yeah, that's actually a good point.
Because it would be a prized possession.
It's not only because if he took it, one, there's evidence right there that, hey, he's the one that fucked up everything up.
Yeah.
2, also, that just goes to show just like how much he hates these guys and how much he wants to hurt them is by destroying such a precious thing. Not even taking it, but destroying it.
Yeah, and some so rare. So imagine if someone had a 1942, Ford coupe vehicle they had completely restored.
Oh yeah.
Like
it's worth millions.
That's like one that there's maybe like I would assume there's probably like less, 1,000 or so of those that exist on the planet anymore. Versus like if you go forward into like the 60s and 70s muscle cars, there's a lot more of those because like you're closer to that. They're a lot
more of the mass production,
more mass produced.
Yeah.
So it's like if you were to steal that dude's 1942 Ford, like that's one thing. But if you were to like in his garage fucking destroy it, like how much worse is that to that person, right?
Like okay, I have a signed Mickey Mantle bat. Like that's amazing. Like that's cool. if you steal it, it's like, oh god damn it, I get why they stole it. It was worth something.
Yeah.
But if they take it and throw it in my fucking fireplace, that's
Yeah.
just like, god damn it, like you ruined it.
Yeah, or using a signed Babe Ruth ball
Yes.
to play Sandlot baseball.
You're killing me, Smalls. But yeah, getting back to my notes, this is just so vile here. Jonas has seemed cunning and smart and dangerous, but this seems more of like a move of like Depape or Reynolds would do. This is just cruel. I would be so pissed if this was my stuff. Good reminder of just how bad/dangerous Jonas really is.
Yeah.
We've kind of gotten the sense that he's really smart.
Yeah.
And so something like this would seem kind of like maybe a little bit beneath him kind of thing.
No, because all this is very well thought out. Everything it's not like if it were the other two that came and did this, it would have been a lot more messy, but it probably would have been a less meaningful. Like
you do think that Depape and Reynolds probably would have kept the book then?
potential. I mean, I don't know.
They would try and hawk it and sell it, right?
I think Jonas is so smart. He knows exactly the way to maximize their outrage.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the other two would have been they would have done some damage and shit fine.
Yeah.
But I think that like Jonas, it's all like cerebral. Like everything he's doing, he knows. Like I'm going to give you a paper cut and then I'm going to rub salt in it. Like that versus.
And then after you get the salt out, there's a little squirt of lemon juice.
Yes.
Just to
Yes.
chef's kiss.
Also, I had to laugh because as he's twisting the birds' heads off, it reminds me of Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, God.
Our pets' heads are falling off. And then he sells it to the blind kid. He tapes the bird's head back on. I'm sorry, but whenever an animal, especially a bird, I mean, you can't take a bird's head off without me thinking of Dumb and Dumber. That's just
I go to Hills Have Eyes, unfortunately. That movie traumatized me.
yeah, indeed. All right, so not to make light of anything, I just twisting the head off, like that's pretty much what happened in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
So. Oh man! All right, so jumping over to subchapter 4. So Roland ignored the burning in Alain's strained, pale face as he rode up to him. Roland headed him off by saying that he counted 31 on his side with the barony brand and asked Alain about his count. Alain said that he had to go back. They had to go back. Something was wrong. It was the touch, and he had never felt anything so clear. Roland ignored him and asked him for his count, and thought that there were times such as now where Alain's abilities were more annoying than helpful. So, and I guess I'm also missing stuff in the chat here.
Here, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
The point was to make sure that the Ka-Tet knew exactly who did this act. A random townie would have just stolen their valuables. This was personal, meant to draw them out.
Yeah, it's a Baraki says.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, but it isn't. There's nothing that's gonna like hang. It's nothing that's gonna hang on, like there's no proof that it's him.
Right.
But yeah, it's gonna be obvious. Like this isn't just some like kids. Like this was too personal.
We're gonna come back to this point here in my next subchapter. So we're gonna let Tad go through his. But Agamorphy also says Arnie Cunningham would know the feeling about destroying a car.
Yes, exactly.
And then Brocky says bird head off. I go to Hereditary.
Yeah,
Ooh.
there's that too. There's that too.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Although usually I think of a different head coming off when I think of Hereditary. Oh. Still one of my favorite.
That is that movie, isn't it?
One of my favorite sharp cuts is
yeah.
after they let a few scenes go by and then they cut back to that head.
And it's got the ants all over it.
It's so good, so brutal. So my note here. So Roland clearly knew something was going to happen. He was likely lying to Cuthbert, obviously, a few subchapters ago about we can go or I'll let you send the pigeons in the morning if you still want to. So I'm basically just putting a point on everything that we've been seeing, where it's like it's seeming like Roland's kind of playing some dirty tricks here, and now it's like 100% he knew. He not only anticipated this happening, but he knew it would be today because again he did see or either saw or sensed Jonas. I actually misread. I thought it said that Jonas was like a quarter of a mile away, and it didn't actually say that. I double checked, so he may have even seen Jonas or seen like some grass, depressed.
It actually says exactly what happened.
What?
How Roland knew that he was there. It says it later.
Okay, but yeah, I remember the first time hoping that Roland had figured it out, but honestly not trusting him because of the Susan stuff. Also, we don't know how capable Roland is at this age. We know that long in the future he's going to end up being as capable as anyone. Like he's anytime that Roland's like holding back and like Eddie's wanting to do something or everyone's like whatever, you kind of know you could trust Roland. But here We can't. We don't know.
There's a lot of times where it's just like, Eddie, shut the fuck up. Do what Roland says.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that we're like that.
Yeah, and this, we just don't know. Like, this is 14-year-old Roland. Yes, he's a gunslinger, but it's like there's a lot of life that has not happened to him yet, which is the nature of anything, right? The difference between God knows how old Roland is versus a 14-year-old kid.
Yep.
Like, he's going to be more wise and intelligent and smart, all the things that go along with age, but also, a gunslinger that's been doing it forever versus a kid that's barely got his guns. It's great in a way because King telling us the story this way, because we ultimately don't know. We want to be able to think that Roland's super on top of it, but we have every reason, same as Cuthbert, to doubt.
There's
Roland's.
a reason. Yeah, there's a reason. King has written it masterfully that we have a reason to doubt Roland.
Yeah.
So, but I just get the feeling that he sensed or detected Jonas when he was walking to the stable. It wasn't a premonition. It wasn't something that he anticipated Jonas was going to do this. I think just something happened. He decided to let Jonas have his way and use that to gain an advantage over him.
Yeah.
I don't think that it was anything like this was planned ahead. I think literally you see it it was my subchapter. He's walking across the yard. He stops and goes, "Oh." Like very clearly it's not something he was planning on, that, okay, today's the day that it's going to happen, kind of thing. This was a spur of the moment, just oh shit, this is happening. Well, what do I do? Okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Nothing. We're going to do nothing.
Yeah. So Alain then said 40 or 41. He forgets, and he asked, "What does it matter?" He said they have to move. Or he said, "What does it matter? They move what they don't want us to count." Then asked if Roland had heard him, and said again they have to go back. Something was wrong at their place. Roland looked at Bert 500 yards away, writing peacefully, and then raised his eyebrows at Alain in a silent question. Alain said that Bert was numb to the touch, and it always had been, and Roland knew it. So kind of Roland's essentially questioning, if you're sensing this, why is Alain not?
Why is Cuthbert not?
Or Cuthbert. I will say, though, I don't remember if I put a note for it. Kind of makes me wonder, is Roland really questioning Alain with Cuthbert, or is he just looking to see if Cuthbert's far enough away to not catch wind of anything?
I think he's looking to see if Cuthbert's far enough that he can have this discussion with Alain.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, because I think I do have a note later about how much different this would be if it were Cuthbert that had these,
this
either premonition or whether he caught wind of if they were in a group and Alain had brought this up. Yeah. I don't think they're we'll get to it. But
I think Roland would have just shut him down. I think it would have been, nope, as leader, you're not talking. Shut up.
Yeah. So he said that on the other hand, he said that he, on the other hand, was not, and begged Roland to listen to him, and said whoever it was would find the pigeons and maybe even their guns. The normally stoic Alain was nearly crying in his excitement, and then asked Roland if he would not go back, then give him leave to go back. And Roland said no, and restated that his count was 30 and Alain was 40, and says that they can now switch sides and count again. So this is rough. Not used to seeing this kind of rise out of Alain, and if he is this hot right now, one can only imagine how Cuthbert would react. I mean, if he were not a quarter of a mile away and he heard any of this, I think 100% he would go back without Roland's permission.
I don't think he would wait.
Yeah, and I don't think anything Roland could do short of jumping on him and tying him up or incapacitating him would stop Cuthbert. He would 100% be gone. So because of the strife that we've had with these two characters, right? On top of the fact that Cuthbert's kind of probably more of a hothead, or more, not hothead. He's more Eddie. I think we kind of know Eddie's character versus Alain that's more reserved. So if Alain is going Chernobyl here, what the hell would happen with Cuthbert?
Well, there's actually an interesting thing here that I wanted to bring up because this is my note. I wonder how much of Alain's anger or frustration, or like you said, going Chernobyl, is due to this being insight from the touch. With how he's trained to understand it and to trust it, his feelings, his dreams, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're strong on the touch. I bet you that Van A has drilled into him. Don't ignore it. Listen to.
We've heard that from Court.
Oh yeah,
in Roland's head. It's like no, you missed something.
Yeah.
It's
look again, maggot. It's the airplane. You're right.
Yeah.
And everything like that. The fact that Roland is telling him to ignore it has to be one of the most frustrating things for Alain.
And he said it was the strongest thing he'd ever sensed
Right,
before.
exactly. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that you've been trained for 14 years to trust this. But then the time that that alarm goes off, your leader says, fuck you.
Yeah, even outside of the touch,
Basically.
I mean, in our world, a lot of people have instincts, or
Yeah.
some people do, and you
Yeah,
know,
it's like-
some people just have instincts. I mean, you hear it a lot with like people that survive serial killers and stuff. Like, there's like alarm bells.
I had a feeling not to get into his car.
Yeah, and there was just something that was like I need to jump out of this moving car. Like, there's
Something was wrong.
and it's not even like people are like, oh, I'm like I have all these like crystals and I can see the no. It's just normal people that don't even necessarily believe they have that strong of instincts, but there are times that they are like a klaxon alarm going off.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that's so even outside of King's supernatural element of the touch, you know, it's the same thing we see. So it's like Alain seeing something so clear has got to be like, it's kind of exciting.
And for to have that shut down so hard by Roland, like I said, no wonder he's on the verge of tears. No wonder he's on the verge of, I mean, has he already asked, I think you said he's already asked for leave to go back by himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who's back there. He doesn't know what's back there. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
He's asking for leave to go back alone and face this challenge. Not with his Ka-Tet, not with Roland and Cuthbert.
Yeah.
That's how upset he is. Like, very clearly, this is the worst that Alain has ever felt.
Yeah.
And when Roland says no is what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
like you said, he was on the verge of tears.
Yeah. And again, he's not that he's a very stoic character. He doesn't have that kind of, you know, he's not kind of the hothead's the wrong word. It's kind of hard to put a finger on exactly what he and Eddie are, but they're very opinionated. They're very emotionally driven.
They wear their emotions on their sleeve is the one that I've heard the most. And being like Eddie, that's the one I relate to the most, is that if you piss me off, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not very good at hiding it and everything like that. Alain, I think he's very good.
Yeah.
Very good at hiding what he's really feeling.
Yeah, for sure. And again, brilliant work from King, because these characters are so well defined.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I love it. So my next note, again, very frustrating with Roland seemingly not caring. If this were an adult Roland, I would trust him. But again, we simply do not know if this Roland is in his right mind because of Susan. And we certainly know he's nowhere near as capable as what we're used to with adult Roland. So it's like lesser capability, and also you have every reason to doubt his actual motivations because of the Susan stuff. And I mean, not even necessarily trying to lay everything on him because he is a kid. So I understand part of it. I can give him a little bit of a break. But at the same time, I'm still kind of mad at him because it's like you have a lot you're responsible for, not just yourself. So like you can't be irresponsible. But yeah,
it was last book club. If I remember, and it's been a minute since we've done a book club, like we said. They talked. Roland and Cuthbert had a little bit of a spat about this is the fate of the world kind of situation, because if they get the oil, to Farson, and Farson is able to use it, that's it for Gilead. That's the war lost.
Yeah.
Period. Gilead falls.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
So that's where it's just like, this isn't just some little thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is life and death for Gilead.
And no one knows.
And no one knows but them.
Yeah. Yeah. So going on here, Alain asks Roland what is wrong with him, and looked at him as if he had gone mad. Again, crazy to think that that's Alain, because this Cuthbert's been doing this already, but like it's just weird because usually Cuthbert's the one that's like gasping when things are being said by Cuthbert, right? So for him to be saying it's wild. Roland answered nothing. Alain then said that Roland knew. He knew when they left this morning. Roland admitted to seeing something, a reflection perhaps.
Yeah.
The only thing about that though is like seeing could easily be like a touch thing as well. We know he's nowhere near what Alain is, but it's like there's some kind of premonition of like, because that's just ambiguous enough where I'm like, I think maybe he just spotted something, but it could very well be that just something hit him, you know, like what it could even be instincts, right?
Well, it could be that it could be an actual reflection, and then Roland just used his deductive reasoning of like, why would someone be spying on us? That's what it is. It makes sense, because that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I bet you that's Roland's process of thought there.
Yeah. So then asked if he trusted, or then Roland asked if Alain trusted him, or if he thought that he had lost his wits with his heart like Bert did. Roland had a faint smile, but distant.
Bird out here catching strays. Damn.
And he had a smile, but his eyes were distant. His over-the-horizon look, Alain thought of it as. And Alain wondered if Susan had ever seen that look and what she made of it. He finally said he did trust him, but he was not sure if that was a lie or not. To himself, that was his thought. Roland said good and told him to switch sides and count, and reminded him of the count. of his count from his side. Alain capitulated, and Roland told him if it made him feel any better, he thought that they would go back early today. Roland rode away, and Alain thought he always wondered what went on in Roland's mind, but never more than now. So that's the end of the subchapter. So my notes here, again, this is wild because, again, this is Alain. This is full-on challenging. This kind of challenge is expected from Cuthbert, but Alain has so often been just more reserved and stoic. So whatever he's...
And
whatever,
also very supportive of Roland, too.
Yes, and very much, like, supportive of Roland, but also, like, it's the rank thing, right? He's a gunslinger. Yeah, I feel like he's way more, like... Yeah. Follow the rules of it is like, you know, kind of you think of it like the Jedi in Star Wars. Like there's certain ones where I was like, well, this is how we have to do it because these are the rules. And then there's Anakin that's like, go for it. Do whatever you want, right? So
that's gonna work? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, exactly. And
that might work? Hey, let's do it even more.
Yeah, and Alain is very much the rule follower. So like the rank element of Roland being a gunslinger, there's that element. So it's just like a double, it's like stacked on top of each other of reasons that he's been very supportive and backed Roland and kind of slapped Cuthbert figuratively constantly about like, no, we've got to listen. He's a gunslinger. We're not. We can trust him. That kind of thing.
And like the Star Wars aspect, especially like the Knights of the Old Republic, what I'm thinking of, you just said it with like the Jedi. Alain is very much a counselor, a force user, a wise, and think it through and everything like that. Dude, Cuthbert is such a guardian. Can I hit something with a lightsaber yet?
Yeah. So whatever he sensed with the touch must have really rattled him, as well as the fact that it's the most clear thing he's ever sensed.
Yeah.
Again, if Alain is this loud and confrontational, God knows how Cuthbert would react.
Oh no, boy!
Like I said, I don't even think he would ask permission from Roland at this point with where the relationship's at and where the tension's at. If Cuthbert caught wind, he's back.
He's gone
to the barquet, and there's not even a question to Roland. He wouldn't even ask him. He would just go.
I think he would just yell, "There's someone at the barquet," and he would just take off.
He'd be gone. Yeah, exactly. And Roland would have no like recourse to like
shit.
Yeah, to like, hey, stop. No,
rides him down and tackles him.
Pretty much.
Lassos him.
He'd have. Yeah, that's in my mind. He'd have to like lasso him. Pretty much.
Just go Red Dead and just pull him off his horse with a lasso.
Pretty much.
My note here: the fact that Alain pauses before answering if he trusts Roland is just such a strong, loud, and strong silence.
Yeah,
that's very telling. Like you said, very much following the order of rank and file. You know, like.
Yeah.
He's the gunslinger. We have to listen to him. He's in charge, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that Roland's like, hey, do you trust me? And Alain goes, yes. Like, that's a loud silence for Alain.
A pregnant pause.
Very, very pregnant.
Yeah. Also, I know it would break the flow of the story to show our present-day Ka-Tet, but I really wonder how Eddie would respond to some of this and how he'd be reacting to some of this as he heard the story. Just because he would be so, like... aligned with, you know, both of the others now. Because, like, honestly, do you think Eddie's just a quiet story listener, or do you think he's one that's chiming in with comments?
I mean, we've seen him interrupt once or twice already.
Yeah. Just like, even a movie. Do you think Eddie's a quiet moviegoer?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. He's the one that's making fucking comments, or it's like, why would you do that?
Eddie loves movies. He would never disrespect
it's not
like
disrespect.
That.
For some people, it's not disrespect. That's just the way they are. And, like, he's one that he'd be making comments. So it would just be interesting to see his purview on it because he doesn't really know how the story unfolds either.
Yeah.
And I just think that he would be siding with both of these boys over Roland
you really do
with the way all the evidence is, the way that, I mean, he's hearing the same story we're reading. Like when we're the same way, we're like, dude, we don't know how this goes. Like, I don't trust Roland. He's seemingly compromised, and we don't know if he's making good decisions. And I just think that Eddie, like, even if it's just like right on Cuthbert, like, I just think he'd be making comments here and there where it's just he would align with what they're saying because he'd be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So.
I'm worried that I would say that I would wonder if Eddie's experience with older Roland may have tainted his view of younger Roland. Where it's like, yeah, the kid's going to make some mistakes, but he obviously knows what the fuck he's doing. He's here and they're not, you know, kind of thing. I wonder if there's a little bit of bias that way where it's like...
Maybe.
Like, yeah, I could see why they're upset with him. You know, Lord knows I've been upset at Long, Tall, and Ugly plenty of times for shit like that, but...
Yeah.
He's got a reason for doing the things the way that he has. I mean, we're talking about just after Ludd kind of... respect where Roland apologized to him.
Yeah.
With the riddle. I think Roland's on Eddie's good side right now. It might be a little hard to get him to say a bad word about Roland.
No, because I think that's in his nature. I mean, I think he's always going to be the burr under the saddle for Roland because that's just the way Eddie is. I don't think he's doing it to be disrespectful. No more than I really think that Cuthbert's being disrespectful with any of this stuff. I don't think it comes down to like purposely trying to affront Roland. It's more of just like, I'm close, I'm your best friend, and I think you've got a blind spot type thing. Whereas like Eddie, it's more like, hey, you're being a fucking heartless motherfucker. We can't mow these people down. Like, not that that's a real thing that's happened, but it's like if it were a thing where it's like, hey, we got to go gun this town down, Eddie'd be like, fuck you, we're not doing that.
Well, the fuck we are.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just it's the character differences, and I can just imagine him just like, yeah, right on, Cuthbert. Yeah. Good for calling Roland or Alain in this case. I love the immediate internal doubt after Alain told Roland he trusted him. It reminds me of Roland wondering about his promise to Jake immediately after giving it.
Yeah.
It seems like a good echo of that we've read previously. So.
Yeah. So going over to subchapter 5, we start off the subchapter with creak, creak, creak. And that is what Jonas had been listening for. He had expected to find it close to the beds, but it wasn't. They were trig all right. He dropped to a knee and then used his knife to pry open the board that had creaked. Under were 3 bundles, each swaddled in cloth that was damp to the touch and smelled of gun oil. He was curious what kind of calibers they had. 2 of the sets were single 5-shot pistols. They were called carvers. I gotta pause right there because even typing this out this morning, it felt wrong. I just it never clicked for me that Alain and Cuthbert were rolling with just 1 gun each. It just never clicked. Every single gunslinger we've ever seen has 2 guns. So it's just kind of weird for me to.
Well, our current Ka-Tet is rolling with 1 gun each.
I know he has 2 guns. One's just on loan while his fingers are on vacation. In a lobstrosity's belly.
Well, I mean, they're also splitting them because there's 4 of them and
3 guns.
Yeah. So, yeah, but no, it's definitely unusual.
Yeah, I honestly, all the times I've read it, it just never dawned on me. Even I just finished a reread. It just never dawned on me that Cuthbert and Alain are doing this whole thing with singles.
Going Wyatt Earp style.
Wyatt Earp, single guns, The 3rd set made Jonas' breath catch for a second. There were 2 guns, and for a heart-stopping moment, Jonas thought they were the big revolvers of a gunslinger with sandalwood grips and blue steel barrels. If they had been big revolvers, he would have taken them, no matter how much that messed up his plans. Seeing the plain grips was a relief. Disappointment was never a thing you looked for, but it had a way of clearing your mind. He rewrapped the guns and put the board back. A gang of ne'er-do-well clouts from the town might have come up to do a little vandalizing, but they wouldn't find these guns.
Ne'er-do-wells is one of my favorite. We need to use that more.
I thought about doing something different. I'm like, that's just too good. So I typed it out and everything.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. He asked himself if they would really believe that some hooligans from town did this. Maybe. But just because he started underestimating them before doesn't mean he should do an about face and start overestimating them now. And he had the luxury of not caring. He just wanted to make them mad enough to rush around their hillock, to throw caution to the wind and reap the whirlwind. Jonas poked the dog's tail into the pigeon's cave so it stuck up like a feather. He used the paint to write boyish slogans like "Suck my prick and go home, you rich fuckers." And I had to fight so hard not to correct that typo, but it's Rich, R-I-T-C-H. So like a bumpkin who doesn't know how to spell wrote it.
Yeah.
And then he left, pausing for a moment on the porch because for a moment or two he felt uneasy, as though he had been scented by some in-world telepathy, perhaps. He thinks that is a tool for artists, lunatics, and gunslingers, not of these boys. Jonas mounted his horse and rode for town. Things were reaching a boil, and there was a lot to do before the demon rose full in the sky. And that's the whole subchapter right there.
Yeah.
I remember being shocked that Jonas left the guns the first time I went through this, and it still gets me a little bit every time.
Yeah.
It's like, but the fact that he's trying to pass it off as town folks makes sense. They wouldn't find the guns. But if he really doesn't believe that the boys are going to fall for that, why not just take them? Why not destroy them? Why not, put them at a severe disadvantage?
Yeah.
Then at that point.
Well, they did get bested without guns before.
That's
so.
You know what? I think I just answered my own question. Is that, well, they can't come after you if they're unarmed, and that's what he wants. He wants them to come after him. He thinks he can take them one-on-one, even if they have guns.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. we get a good glimpse of how precious the sandalwood grips revolvers are. Jonas wouldn't have been able to leave them there. Like it just was inconceivable to leave something that good there.
Yeah. The one thing that it mentioned sandalwood grips and the blued steel or something like that.
Yeah.
I have never pictured them blued.
The blue steel.
I hate blued.
Yeah.
Yeah, guns.
That is the way my revolvers look every single time in Red Dead Redemption.
Got to be silver, man.
No. What the fuck, dude? Show me one cowboy movie where they have a silver fucking pistol.
I've never liked blued.
No one. You couldn't show me a Western movie from your collection right now where someone has a silver revolver. They're all black or blue. Every single one of them.
I don't know, man. I don't like blued.
That's just wrong. You're disgusting.
Not good.
I can't believe you.
So pretty good strategy to try to anger a mistake out of the enemy. Pretty common
yeah.
throughout history, and we even see it today in sports at times. People in a rage make mistakes. How much more so is it for teenagers, even well-trained teenagers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I had this conversation with you or with my wife. I was watching college football this last year, and I saw someone get penalized exactly the way that you're talking about. Someone did something to them. The refs didn't see it. They retaliated. They got penalized.
Yeah.
And it was my wife, because I turned to her and I just went, it's kind of hard to remember that some of these kids are 18, 19 years old when they're playing college football. Like,
yeah,
they're only a few years older than Roland, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. But it's a classic strategy.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you see it throughout history and stuff, too.
Burn a village, do something horrendous, and anger them so they rush headlong for revenge, and then you trap them.
Was that I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I watched it, but was that the whole church burning in Patriot? Was that the idea behind that, was to anger them out into the open?
Yeah. Because they were doing guerrilla warfare, and they couldn't catch them.
Yeah.
The British in America being able to handle the Americans living in America? No, absolutely not.
Yeah. It'd be like someone trying to go into the bayou and look for the swamp people.
That's a no for me. Also, to point out the line that the in-world telepathy being the tricks of artists, lunatics, and gunslingers. That's an interesting trio to say. You got artists, lunatics, and then the leaders of the free world kind of thing, right?
I mean, lunatics, like, I don't know how that fits in, but artists, it kind of reminds me of when they were talking about one of the dad, I think it was Roland's dad, talking about, I think he said Cuthbert, like, he just ended up being a perfumed diplomat.
Right.
It's like, I feel like there's people that get gunslinger training and then purposely don't even go for the trial, but they go into some other. They do, yeah. And it's like, so I would imagine artists might be the same thing.
Right. And so
lunatic, I don't know how that one fits in.
Yeah, that's where it's kind of interesting, kind of throws a wrench into all these
Maybe that's
things,
just like the people today that's like, that's a soothsayer, I'm going to go get my fortune read. Like, that's a lunatic, right? Just someone that's conning people.
This lady's nuts.
So, all right. So over to subchapter 6, Rhea's hut. So that's a happy thing that we're back with Rhea. With its stone walls and pebble roof slimed with moss.
Don't say the word slimed with Rhea.
Huddled on the last hill of the Cöos, beyond it with the magnificent view of the northwest, the bad grass, the desert, the hanging rock, Eyebolt Canyon. But scenic vistas were the last thing on Sheemie's mind as he approached not long after noon. He hated this place more than anywhere in the barony, more than Sitgo with its huge creaky towers. He called out sigh as he had led the mule into the yard. Cappy balked as they neared, but continued as Sheemie pulled the rope, and he felt bad to do it to poor Cappy. Ma'am, nice old lady that wouldn't hurt a fly, are you there? It's good old Sheemie with your graph, and that's a direct quote. He held his hand out, palms up to show his harmlessness. There was no response from the hut. So that's fun. I don't blame him for hating this place, and I love that Sitgo is the next worst place that he compares it to. Susan kind of gave us that vibe when they were there. It's like, she
wouldn't go there by herself, even on a date.
Like, everyone was like, this is like a haunted place. Like, everyone in town's scared of this place. Like, people dare each other to come here at night and stuff. And so it's cool. It's a, again, circular thing where it kind of helps pay into the world building we've already had. Where like that's the immediate thing that
we've already been out to Sitgo. So twice.
Yeah.
The mule balking tells you all that you need to know. Animals know places of death and to avoid them.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know why, but I always pictured her hut being super dilapidated and small. But the doorway I always imagine being opened. And I picture no matter what time of day or night, the doorway is just like a black hole dark. Not just like black, but almost the absence of all existence.
Yeah.
And it always reminds me of any time there's any kind of customization in a video game and they have like the color thing. There's always that thing where you could like slide it over to like so dark a black that it almost just looks like a void in space.
Yes.
Like, would it be sports and it's just like you're changing the dude's socks or whatever. Or it's like a game where you could like change your clothing or whatever. There's always that where you'd be able to turn the black too far. And it always bothered me because it's just like it doesn't look real. It just looks like it's a void in space. But that's the darkness I picture with her door.
Oh, yeah.
Just how I've always pictured it. And even if you had the largest mirror and reflected the light of the sun into it, the darkness would still just be pure black.
Yep.
Like that's how I picture it.
Yeah.
So Sheemie felt his guts coil and cramp. For a moment, he thought he would shit his pants like a babby, and then he farted and he felt better, in his bowels at least. He walked on, liking it less with every step. The yard was rocky with yellow weeds, as if the hut's resident had blighted the very earth with her touch.
She did.
There was a garden with some muty things growing. Then he noticed the stuffy guy, who was also a muty, with 2 straw heads and a gloved hand coming out of its chest. Now, that sounds fun.
Chest burster.
Yeah. Sheemie thought that Cy Thorin would never convince him up here again, not for all the pennies in the world. The door of the hut stood open, so I guess I'm right with my assumption there. To Sheemie, it looked like a gaping mouth with a dank smell drifting out from it.
Oh, there's even a smell.
A dank smell. About 15 paces from the house, Sheemie stopped, and Cappy nuzzled his butt as if to ask what was keeping him, and Sheemie screeched. The sound of the screech almost made him run away. It took all of his willpower to stay. The sun was high, but it seemed incapable of making this area any less scary. He had been up here before, but this seemed so much worse than it ever had. It made him think of how he felt when he awoke to the sound of the thinny, feeling as if something with insane eyes and red claws was coming toward him. Which that's
Fluffy right there. That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. What a great job by King, just painting this scene to be as horrific as any location he's ever painted for us before. This feels as bad as the sewers of Derry or the Lincoln Tunnel in The Stand.
Oh, yeah.
This just like, and you're putting a poor kid here too. Like that's just like again like. He's already a kid, but then he's got the mind of probably half his age.
Yeah.
So it's like just to have him in this situation, like you feel bad for him.
To your other note, it fits with what you're saying.
And I can't wait to see how Flanagan executes this location on screen.
Oh,
just 'cause
right.
He's done some pretty spooky things already,
Yeah.
so I can't wait to see what this looks like on our HBO or whatever screen, Amazon, HBO, whoever it ends up being.
Yeah, exactly. I will say that I am not surprised that her stuffy guy is a mutie.
Yeah.
That does not shock me in the slightest.
That's on character.
Yeah.
He called again, asking if anyone was there. Finally, an answer came from the hut, telling him to come closer, which that's always fun.
No.
Closer, where she could see him. Sheemie could not, or tried not to moan or cry, did as he was bid, while thinking he would never come back down the hill again. Cappy maybe, but not him. He would end up in the cook pot. Hot dinner tonight, soup tomorrow, and cold snacks until year's end. Oof. He made it to the stoop on rubbery legs. If his knees had been any closer, they would have clacked together. She did not even sound the same. He called out that he was afraid. She answered back that he should be, but never mind that and come closer. And I just always picture like, what is it, Frank the Bunny? Come closer.
Come closer.
He did, but the terror dragged every step he took. Cappy followed with his head down. Cappy had honked like a goose the whole way up the hill, but now had fallen silent. Rhea stepped out into the light, wincing as the light hit her. The empty graph barrel in her arms, and Ermot around her throat like a necklace. Ugh. Sheemie had seen the snake before, but had never ceased to wonder the agonies that he would suffer before dying if it was ever bit by it. But not this time, because Ermot looked normal compared to Rhea. Her face had sunken at the cheeks, making the rest of her face look like a skull. Brown spots came from her hairline, looking like insects. I think invading insects is the way that King wrote it. Yeah. Below her left eye was an open sore, and her grin only had a few teeth in it. He did not like the way she looked, and she asked and added, "It made his heart cold, didn't it?" So that's what she's asking. You don't like the way I look? It makes your heart cold. He said no, and then yes, because that didn't sound right. But then the correction sounded worse, so he said she was beautiful. So. Oh, not sure what is worse with an evil feeling hut like this, the silence and stillness, or the opposite.
I know, you're like the anticipation of like, oh my God, what's going to come out of that black maw of a mouth and everything.
Yeah.
And then when something does come out, is that worse than the anticipation of that thing?
Especially like movies where they'll like, something that's like maybe like it should be like a 10-second like before something happens, but then they drag it out to like 15 seconds. Like that extra 5 seconds where you're just bracing, right?
Yeah.
It's like the Jack in the Box, like as it just like gets
You're
slower.
like, I'm way past the revolutions that it should have. Oh my God, there it is.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Sheemie in this whole thing feels like an adult would be terrified by how much more for him, again, with the mind of a young child.
Yeah, you got to be proud of him here. He shows a ton of guts.
Yeah, for sure. We figure the ball is having an effect on her, but we've largely only seen her throughout the story, except since Susan.
Mm-hmm.
We've only really seen her through her. We haven't really seen a lot of other characters interacting with her since
Right.
Susan. So this is the first time we've, quote, seen her, essentially, since she got the ball delivered, because the ball was delivered, then Susan came a little bit later that same night. So all this time that we've been dealing with Rhea, we've kind of not been truly seeing her. And now suddenly it seems like
Yeah,
we
we
are.
had a little passing line here or there saying that she had lost some weight or she wasn't doing too good, but we didn't have like the full on like someone looking at her and describing it like we have here with Sheemie.
Yeah, there's been some slight hints.
Yes.
But nothing that truly revealed, yeah.
This is everything that Rhea was suffering during her time with the ball. No,
Yeah.
we didn't have a full like diagnostic.
So so this is cool to finally actually quote unquote see her from an outsider's eyes. He laughed and thrust the empty, or she laughed and thrust the empty ton into his arms, and the incidental touch of her fingers made his skin crawl. She told him to bring the graph and called him an idiot child. He agreed and brought the empty back to Cappy and clumsily loosened the new one. He could feel her watching him, which only made him more clumsy. He finally got it loose and almost dropped it for a nightmarish moment. He thought it would smash onto the stony ground, but he ended up catching it. He looked back and noticed the snake was no longer on her neck and felt it on his feet, and he looked down and it hissed at him. She called to him and said not to move too fast, and it would not be wise. Ermot was grumpy today. I wonder why. She told him to set the barrel inside the door as it was too heavy for her. She had missed a few meals lately, she admitted, and after he did that, she said, she handed him an envelope sealed with a blob of red wax. She told him to give it to Cordelia Delgado. She held it back a moment and asked if he could read, and he said no. She said good and told him to show it to no one else, or he would find Irma under his pillow. And she told him that she sees far. It was just an envelope, but it felt heavy to Sheemie as he took it from her. She told him that if he lost it, she'd know. He wondered if it would be better if it had got lost, but said that he wouldn't. He was dim, but he knew that this is the reason that he had been called up here, not the graph. So, pausing for some notes here. So her touch would be quite unsettling.
Oh God,
I imagine. I don't know. I just picture there's like a slime to her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, she's all oily because she hasn't bathed. In months. Seems like.
Yeah. I mean, it probably has been at least a month or more.
Yeah.
Right. So, gotta love the universal truth. If you're doing something, even if something you're super familiar with, and a person or some people are watching, suddenly it becomes less easy. Let alone being a boy with the watching eyes of a witch.
Yeah, and she doesn't look like herself either. That's my note here. Is that on top of everything else, on top of going up to here, on top of being creeped out by her, now she looks like a freaking skeleton. She's like wasting away and greasier than ever. Like, yeah, it's just 10 times worse.
Yeah, and then Irma under the pillow. That's not a happy thought for Sheemie because he was already
or anyone.
He was already like thinking about the fact of how bad death would be. If he was bit by that snake. And then fuck, this letter is nothing but trouble, especially because the last book club she kind of remembered about paying Susan back. She had lost sight of her because of the ball, so now it is clear that it is clearly something to expose the relationship, probably and to Cordelia because that's who it's being sent to. Which honestly, is there any worse person they could find out right now than Cordelia?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that,
I don't think
I think she's the worst. Like, yes, Thorin would be bad, but there's something with Cordelia with the way she's been deteriorating mentally. Like, that's just there's no worse thing.
She might kill Susan.
Yeah, exactly. Good job, Sheemie, for reasoning it out. His true purpose to be there, like Tom Cullen in The Stand. I think for someone to underestimate Sheemie, they do that to their own peril.
Yeah.
She then invited him in and pointed at his crotch and said if he ate one of her special mushrooms, she could look like anyone he fancies. Horny Rhea. Gross.
I'm gonna puke.
I don't know how, but I think I've mostly overlooked this until doing the book clubs. I think this is just one of those lines that just happens, and I just don't really let it settle into my brain. So
you got other things on your mind, like what's going on with Jonas and Cuthbert and Roland and everything.
Yeah, so doing these line by lines can be good because we can suss things out.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, we suss out something that is not great.
Disgusting.
He said he couldn't, and he grabbed his crotch and said that pesky thing fell off last week. Rhea just gawked at him for a moment as she was genuinely surprised for one of the few times in her entire life, and she finally broke into cackling laughter, holding her stomach and rocking back and forth with glee. Ermot was startled by this and slithered into the hut, and there was a hiss from the hut as Muzzy hissed at Ermot. Rhea, still laughing, dropped 3 or 4 pennies into his shirt pocket and told him to get out and not to linger and look at her flowers. He agreed, but the door closed before he could finish his thought to her. So Baraki has a puking emoji in the chat.
Yeah. I gotta say, I didn't put a note down for this, but don't linger and look at her flowers. What fucking flowers
Exactly.
are you gonna have, Rhea?
Yeah, exactly. So this is quite the line from Sheemie.
Oh, dude. My note, accidental humor is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Like, I've done that. I know you have too, where it's just like you say something and everyone just busts up and you're like, I didn't think that would be that funny.
Yeah.
Well, all right then.
Yeah, exactly. One of the few genuine surprises in her life is saying a lot.
Yeah.
Because she is not a young person.
And she's a witch.
And she's a witch. Yeah, you'd think that, surprises have the few, to me, saying, one of the few surprises in her life would mean, that's, less than 5, right?
Yeah.
That's not, that, for a long life, that's wild.
It's pretty good.
I love the almost comedy of Ermot slithering into the hut and then hearing a hiss from the darkness as Musty hisses at Ermot. Something about that is just really funny to me. It just feels like slapstick.
Ermot just goes slithering in all fast and then
you hear a hissing and shit. Yeah. So Sheemie got out safe, but fuck. Now that letter is on him. We obviously want to know what's in that. I mean, we probably know, but
it doesn't show her writing it last time, does it?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought it did.
No.
I
mean, yeah, all of the hints are given. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of clear what it's all about.
I mean,
but-
maybe in the chat could, oh God, Hagamorphy, don't say that.
She's a cougar.
Don't say that, man. Oh, gross. But I swore, maybe someone in the chat could go back and fact check me, but I swore last time we had where she wrote it and we saw what it said. I swore. Maybe I'm just remembering it because of my read through.
Yeah.
But my last note here, is anyone safe now? That letter isn't a bomb. That's a fucking nuke waiting to go off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
absolute chaos.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So subchapter 7, rolling right along. Roland surprised Cuthbert that they would go back to the Barquet round 2. When Bert asked why, Roland only shrugged and wouldn't say any more. Bert looked at Alain and saw a queer and musing expression. As they neared the bunkhouse, a sense of foreboding filled Cuthbert, and as they topped a rise, they could see the door stood open. Alain called Roland and pointed towards their laundry on the ground. Cuthbert dismounted and ran to them, picked up a shirt, sniffed it, and flung it away. "Pissed on," he cried indignantly. Come on, Roland said. "Let's look at the damage." Dude, this has to be so infuriating. And we haven't even got to the worst of it yet, but the fact that someone pissed on your clean clothes.
Yeah.
I do laundry in a laundromat because I live in an apartment. If I came in and someone had pissed on my wet clothes while they were trying to dry, I'd be so fucking pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Roland is infuriating at times. He is being so calm. It would be as infuriating to me as much as Jonas's work.
This is how me and Eddie feel about him all the fucking time, Tad. This is how we feel.
Oh man, so that's it for subchapter 7.
Short little one, just nothing, not much there.
Jump over to 8 here. There's a lot of damage to look at, as you expected. Bert thought towards Roland, and then he turned to Alain, who was gloomy but not surprised, as you both expected. And this is all in parentheses, so he's not saying it; he's just thinking it. Roland plucked something from near one of the dead birds. It was so fine at first, Cuthbert could not see it. It was a single hair, very long and white. Roland let go of it, and it fell among the shredded remains of Bert's mom and dad. Bert asked, so Bert's the one that had both parents in the picture. That's interesting. Bert asked if he knew that old Corby was here. Why did they not come back and end his breath? Roland said because the time was wrong. Bert said that he would have if it had been the boys destroying his things. Roland said that they are not like him. Bert said that he was going to find him and blow his teeth out the back of his head. That's the spirit, Cuthbert. I like that.
Revenge.
Roland told him no. If Bert had to listen to one more word from Roland in that mild voice, he was going to go crazy. All thoughts of the Ka-Tet and fellowship left his mind, and his mind sank into his body and was consumed by red fury. Jonas had been here, pissed on their clothes, called Alain's mom a cunt, tore up their most treasured pictures, painted childish obscenities on their wall, killed their pigeons, and Roland had known and done nothing, and intended to continue doing nothing except for fuck his gilly girl. He would do plenty of that because that is all he cared about. But she would not like the look of your face next time you climb into the saddle. Bert thought, I will see to that. And this is again all thoughts in his mind.
Yeah.
So that's some foreboding there.
Oof, man.
Well, I was right. Alain was in near hysterics, and I said, how much worse is Bert going to be? Well, here we go.
And he's just getting started.
Yeah. I will admit I was fully with Bert the first time reading it. Of course, on rereads, I can kind of be a little bit more level-headed about the classic strategy of angering an enemy into making ill-advised moves. But that it may not be the oldest trick in the book, but it's at least in the first half of said book.
Oh, within the first 5 chapters, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
An emotional enemy makes mistakes.
Yes, exactly. Also, I think the first time through, like Bert, my anger was as much towards Roland for allowing this to happen as it was for the fact that I didn't trust his reasoning. He just wants the status quo so he could fuck Susan. It was frustrating because he is abandoning his responsibilities, but also we know adult Roland. So we see him acting. So to see him acting so stupidly is frustrating because we know adult Roland would be so much more clear-headed.
Absolutely.
And adult Roland has really never let anything get in the way of like the right thing to do.
Right.
Even to the point of like almost infuriating.
It almost died.
Right?
He almost gave his life for that stance.
Yeah.
And he put a knife to his throat and was like, "Take me through, motherfucker." And Roland's like, "Fuck you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck you, asshole.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like double infuriating for us because we've seen both sides of the coin. So to see, old Roland that's so damn capable, and now to flashback and see this younger Roland and just see him being so stupid. Like you want to reach to the page and just shake him.
Oh, dude, this is one of those instances where if I could slap a character, I probably would have. Especially my first time through. Like, like you said, like obviously, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
And everything, but first time reading this, I was, I was so mad.
And it kind of makes me wonder if maybe some of this, the humor of Cuthbert's great, but I wonder if my frustrations were so reflected in Cuthbert that's why I loved him so much when reading this book, right? Like,
you related to him. That's how you relate to a character. When you relate to a character and they're mad about something, you're mad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happens.
So,
in the chat, Jack says, "Hi all, it's been a while since I can't pass up and have a moment to see you when you're live. Thanks for being the one of the best constants in life." You're welcome.
Yeah, welcome aboard the live stream, Jack. Definitely love seeing you and everyone here. I always love it.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, even just the snake emojis just make me happy.
No, not those. Not those. One thing I would ask Bert is how would he have come back and killed him? Their guns were under the boards there with a slingshot and knives. Jonas is packing iron. I guess they would have gotten the drop on him, but still.
Yeah.
It just makes you kind of like, tactically, Bert, Alain, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
That man's wearing 2 6-shooters.
And he's on high alert right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because his number one expectation is you're going to come riding up fucking Main Street looking for him.
Yeah.
So,
but like, if you're, I'm talking about catching him in the act at the bar.
Oh, okay, I see.
If you're catching him in the bar, your guns are under the floorboard.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have, I think, if I remember right, the armory that has been described is that Alain has a ba, Cuthbert has a slingshot, Roland has a spear, and then they have their knives.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you're going to come rolling up to the barcade, pissed off,
now
to high hell, riding like the devil's on your ass.
Yeah.
And you're going to come tearing in there, and you're going to be able to take him.
Rage is a very handy thing in a fight.
True, but 12 bullets says otherwise. That's all I'm saying is like, What? You're
Yeah,
not
but
even armed.
does he have a slingshot on him though? That's what I'd be curious about.
I mean, I would imagine so, but I mean, I could see your point that maybe he's not even armed. He's aside from his knife. He doesn't need it.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be like these trusting in-world brats. Why would they be going around with slingshots and knives and such and everything?
But they had it on him for the Traveler's Rest. That's what makes me think he probably...
And that's right after the party, too.
Yeah, so I kind of think he probably has it on him at all times.
It's his little... Well, he's got a custom carrier for it and everything, too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's like... I still just like... How are you going to kill a guy with guns, Bert? Like, Alain, let's be smart here. That's one of the... like, point Roland there. Like, hey, we're unarmed, guys. Like, calm down.
Let's not defend Roland.
Yeah.
And then my last note, Bert intends on actually hitting or fighting Roland. This is bad. Shit is getting close to our shit is getting close, and we're under 3 weeks from Reap, we learned earlier in this episode. And now our team is fraying away at the seams.
Oh, yeah.
So that's not good. That is less than ideal. So he drew back his fist, but Alain caught his wrist. Roland turned away and began picking up blankets as if Bert's rage and drawn fist meant nothing.
Dude, I always forget that Roland sees it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like Roland turns around and then he goes to hit him and Alain stops him.
Yeah.
I always forget that Roland's like, yeah.
Yeah.
He just doesn't give a shit anyway.
So Bert balled his other fist, intending to make Alain let him go one way or the other. Oh, that's rough. But the sight of his friend's face, so honest and guileless and dismayed, quieted his rage a bit. His fight was not with Alain. He knew something was happening here, but he wasn't. But he was sure Roland stopped him from let's see. He knew something was happening here, but he was sure Roland stopped him from acting. Bert was sure. Alain, you're talking about Alain knew what was going to happen here. Alain told Bert to follow him outside, and he had to cool down. Alain said he had no time, or said this was no time to be fighting amongst themselves. Bert said it was not time for their leader's brain to drain down his prick either, and took no effort to lower his voice, but then let Alain lead him outside anyway. So that's ouch. Bert thought that he'd stay his rage against him one last time, and he'd tell Alain to tell Roland. But then the thought of using Alain as a go-between between his best friend filled him with a fresh rage, and he shouted that she's made you a coward, Roland, and he said that in the high speech. Alain gasped sharply. Roland stopped in that moment. Bert was sure he would turn and they would fight until one of them was dead, blind, or unconscious. It would likely be him, but he didn't care anymore. And then the last bit here is a direct quote. But Roland never turned. Instead, in the same speech, he said, "He came to steal our guile and our caution. With you, he has succeeded." "No," Cuthbert said, lapsing back into low speech. "I know that part of you really believes that, but it's not so. The truth is you've lost your compass. You called your carelessness love and made virtue of your irresponsibility. And then gets cut off by Alain saying, "For God's sake, come." Alain nearly snarled and yanked him out the door. Again, I'm taking some joy with Cuthbert's words here because I've been thinking it for a while now in this book, reading it. So again, I don't know if I've ever wanted to go reach through a page and shake someone as much as it has with this story. So
and we've talked about it before on our roundtables, not necessarily so much in the book clubs, is that this is your favorite Dark Tower book.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the first time that you read it through. Do you think maybe part of it was the fact that you just hated Roland so much?
No,
or he infuriated you?
No, I just wanted to go forward.
It was just the fact that it was a flashback.
Yeah, and that's why, like, honestly, like when I see people online that are like, "Oh, I'm going to start this Dark Tower series," I honestly will tell them the fourth book is an entire flashback because I'm like, I think if you know that going in,
you can kind of prep for it.
It's an expectation thing. For me, I expected to continue moving forward with the tower, and suddenly this book flashed me back. So it's like, I know some people are like, "Oh, isn't that a spoiler?" I'm like, no, because even King in one of his afterwards says that, like, "Hey, I've got a few more of these books. One of them is going to be entirely Roland's backstory." I kind of missed that. I don't even know if I read his afterwards the first time I read the story. So, but I don't think it's a spoiler, and I also think it might help people enjoy it more, because if they go in, they end book 3 knowing, hey, the next book is going to be entirely or almost entirely a flashback. Like, I think that could help people enjoy it more, because that was really what it was for me, man. If I would have known that, I may not have been happy about it, but I probably could have accepted it more. Okay, so my notes here, man, I feel really bad for Alain. I'm 100% cheering for Bert here, but I really feel bad for poor Alain being caught in the middle like this.
Oh yeah,
and again, he's such a timid and like stoic person, not timid, but maybe stoic person, that for him to be between these two like clashing, like, what is it, the flint and steel? Like,
Yeah.
there's just, for him to be like caught in the middle of this, just, I feel bad for him.
Oh, yeah,
He's just got the
absolutely.
wrong personality to be stuck between these two. So,
Yeah.
poor guy or kid.
Thank God Roland talked to Alain on the drop. I really believe that him having the time to calm down is the reason that he's so level-headed here. Is
Yeah.
That he's had time to process this. Bert hasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you were saying before when we were covering that conversation on the drop between Roland and Alain. It's like, oh my God, imagine if this was Bert. He would have just taken off for the Barquet if he had had that premonition.
Yeah.
Well, here, Roland has him dealing with it and not having that conversation out there. But having that conversation with Alain, I think really, really helps because he's had time to process.
Yeah.
And prep himself before coming back.
Yeah, exactly. And then my next note, damn, Bert almost punched Alain. He's really hot right now. Like, that's a level of anger, because I feel like when you have someone that's a little bit more stoic or whatever, like, you're always going to treat them differently. So it's like the fact that he almost like balled his fist to punch Alain, like, I just feel like Alain's like a puppy. He just, you don't want to hurt him. He's Alain. Like, he's,
you can't hurt the innocent one. But like you were saying, you feel bad for him being stuck in between these two.
Yeah. So that just shows how
he's caught in the crossfire.
That shows how like on fire Cuthbert is right
Yeah.
now. So, all of this had me fist pumping the first time because everything Bert is saying here is exactly what I've been thinking for a while now. I was so frustrated with Roland the first time through, and honestly, even on rereads to a lesser extent, it just it drives me fucking insane.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, come on. I even try to be as like gracious as I can on rereads, or it's just like, I kind of get it, you are a kid, but again, it's like, man, you've got responsibilities here, and you're letting him go. So I know, just overall, my last note is just kind of a holistic. This is all very brutal.
Oh.
This is not good.
It's hard to read when friends like this have fights,
Yeah.
especially ones that we care about so much. We've come to love Cuthbert
Yeah.
already before we even got to this book with everything that we saw with like Hacks the Cook and everything.
Yeah.
So to see this friendship breaking,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
And when's the last time we've seen him make a joke?
Cuthbert,
Because
the lookout.
Because when they lost it, he was all down. Like, he's been like
Yeah.
down and kind of like uppity for a while now.
Ever since they, honestly, it's probably since Roland slept with Susan.
And that's like one of his defining characteristics. So to see his entire character transformed
Yep.
over the course of chapters and chapters now, like, that's kind of rough to see, because it's
That's-
like, he's our boy.
Yeah.
Everyone loves him. He's one of the most beloved characters in the story. But it's like there is a transformation because he is being affected by all this to the point where
If all of a sudden Eddie stopped making wisecracks and being a smartass and everything like that, all of a sudden we'd be like, oh, that's different. That's not normal.
Yeah.
That's off-putting.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, and I don't think I've ever really fully tracked that while I've read, because I think I just get so caught up in the story. But here, when we're being more analytical and stuff, it's a thing I noticed where it's like, God, I started thinking about it, and I was like, when's the last time we just saw jovial, joking? I mean, he got a little bit happy when Roland agreed on the whole give the list to the town, but even then, he didn't start like joking. He didn't.
Well, no, because then he got pissed off at Roland because Roland's like, great, you guys do it.
You guys go, yeah.
And he's like, but it was Alain who flared up there, and it's like, you fucking idiot. No, you're the leader. You have to go.
Yeah. So it's just been a while since we've seen like classic Cuthbert.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of tough when you see a character kind of lose themselves a bit because of
Absolutely.
circumstances. So.
Yeah. That was your last note, right?
Yep.
Okay, so subchapter 9, with Roland out of sight, Cuthbert's rage turned on Alain. He stood facing him with his hands knotted into fists so tight they were trembling by his side. He asked Alain why he always excused Roland. Alain says that out on the drop, Roland asked if he trusted him, and Alain said that he did. He didn't mention the pause that he had when he answered that.
The pregnant pause.
The pregnant pause. Cuthbert calls him a fool. Alain reminds Cuthbert that Roland is a gunslinger, and if he says wait longer, they must wait. Cuthbert says he is a gunslinger by accident, a freak, a mutie. Alain stared at him in silent shock, and then I just had to pause here real quick and take a note. That feels like borderline blasphemy to me, with like the gunslingers and everything like that.
Yeah.
If you're calling someone that they're barely a gunslinger and they're only there because they're a freak or a mute, that dude.
Yeah.
That's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Alain is responding like that to kind of add to your point. But I also think, isn't this the exact kind of thing a best friend is willing to say?
Oh, yeah.
There are some elements of a close relationship or even a spouse that kind of blinds you like friends of people that become celebrities or they become super rich or successful, whatever, there's always an element of like the longtime friend is the one that could still just see through all that and just kind of like still see them for who they are type thing and not
call
like,
them on their bullshit and
not like buy into the mythology that builds around people. And it would be the same thing here, right? There's like, and I think Alain buys more into like the mythology of like what a gunslinger is, whereas Cuthbert's like, no, this is still the kid that I have fought with on the playground and we've been friends, and it just there's an element.
I kicked his ass 3 weeks ago at chess. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that's kind of an interesting thing. To an extent, it reminds me of Franny telling Stu that despite being a founding father and someone the whole community looks to, he still leaves skid marks in his underwear.
It's true.
Like, it was just one of those things. Like, she, again, the spouse side of it, she's able to cut through all like kind of the mythology and just be like, you're just
remind
a dude.
him that he's still human.
Yeah, you're still a human. So it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, because yes, it is like very shocking because he's saying it in the worst possible way, which is probably on purpose. But it's like, it really comes down to, though, is like being Roland's closest friend his whole life. Like, he's going to be able to see through all this and be like, I don't fucking care if he's a gunslinger. He's fucking stupid right now.
Yeah, and the thing that he's saying is entirely true, because how Roland became a gunslinger is absolutely a freak. Like, that had a 1 in a million shot of working.
And Baraki says Cuthbert doesn't really believe the freak comment. He is just trying to shock Alain to hurt Roland, and that's a good. That's
that
an
is a good intake.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it too, for
absolutely.
sure.
But yeah, I could see Cuthbert just being like, dude, that was luck.
And I will also say the other side of the coin of that friend or even spouse thing is, who knows better how to hurt you deepest than your closest friend or maybe a spouse.
Those are the people that you confide in. Those are the people. I can tell you right now, my wife knows things about me that if she said stuff like this, oh yeah, it would hurt me.
And
that's where my trust is.
And also knows how to say it in the most damaging way.
Oh yeah.
Like, Cuthbert's going to know that. He's going to know the exact ways to say it to be the most damaging to Roland.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like so I think that's a good point for sure.
Absolutely. So going on, Cuthbert tells him to come with him and to end this mad game. They will find Jonas and kill him. Their Ka-Tet is broken, and then they need to form a new one, just the two of them. Alain said it isn't broken, and if it does break, it'll be Bert who breaks it, and he would never forgive him for it. Now it was Bert's turn to be silent. Alain tells him to go for a ride, a long one, and give himself time to cool off. Alain goes on to say, so much depends on their fellowship, and Cuthbert cuts in and says, tell that to Roland. Alain says, no, I'm telling you. Jonas wrote a foul word about my mother, and does Bert really think that Alain would like to avenge that if he didn't think Roland was right? That is exactly what Jonas wants, for them to lose their wits and come after him. Charge blindly around their hillock. Cuthbert says that it is right, but it's wrong too. His fists are slowly unrolling by his side. Bert said that he doesn't have the words to explain it. He says that if he was to say Susan has poisoned the well of their Ka-Tet, it would be called jealousy. But he thinks that she has, all unknowingly and unmeaning, but she has poisoned his thinking. The door to hell is open, and Roland feels the heat and mistakes it for his love for Susan. He tells Alain that the two of them must do better. They must think better for themselves and for their fathers. Alain asks if she is their enemy. Cuthbert says no, and it would be easier if she was. He took several deep breaths and said Alain's idea for a ride was a good one, and he will take a long one. Bert started for his horse and turned back, and then I had to quote this. This is one of the best things from Bert in the entire series with him. And so a direct quote from the book. Tell him he's wrong. Tell him that even if he's right about waiting, he's right for the wrong reasons, and that makes him all the way wrong. He hesitated. Tell him what I said about the door to hell. Say that's my piece of the touch. Will you tell him? Yes. Stay away from Jonas, Bert. Cuthbert mounted up. I promise nothing. You're not a man. Alain sounded sorrowful, on the point of tears, in fact. None of us are men. You better be wrong about that, Cuthbert said, because men's work is coming. He turned his mount and rode away at a gallop. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's... I'm going to skip to one of my later notes. That's my favorite quote from Cuthbert right there.
Yeah.
Like, all his funny lines and everything like that, but the line about Roland being wrong, even if he's right, he's wrong for the right... he's right for the wrong reasons. That makes him all the way wrong.
Yeah.
That has stuck with me since the very first time I read this at like 17, 18 years old, is that it doesn't matter if you're right but if you're right with the wrong reasoning, then you're all the way wrong.
Yeah.
And that's just, and then that quote there at the end is that none of us are men. You better be wrong about that because men's work is coming.
Yeah.
Oh, I got goosebumps
Yeah.
like reading that and everything. And then my other note here, Alain is so damn smart. He recognized that Roland is right, but at the same time, he fully understands Cuthbert's feelings here, and so do I. Like, I could, you've been talking about it this whole episode. God, it's so frustrating with how Roland is acting and everything like that. We can fully understand Cuthbert's feelings, but Alain recognizes what Roland's doing is that he is saving their lives right now.
Yeah.
Because if they go charging after Jonas right here, riding into town with their guns
He's
on
gonna be
their waist,
waiting.
all of them are dead.
Like if he's sitting outside the Traveler's Rest right now, the Reynolds and Depape
Boots up on the railing,
are up
yeah.
on side buildings, setting up a crossfire to
Oh, yeah.
catch them in. Like it's a trap.
Oh, absolutely.
Admiral Akbar is correct. It's a trap.
Absolutely.
So
there's no way that they could, even in best case scenario, they get the better of all three of the big coffin hunters in that trap. What then? They just murdered sheriff deputies.
Yeah. There's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would argue Cuthbert is 100% here. Roland may be right, but he's right for the wrong reasons. I simply do not see enough from Roland until now to see that he is actually just being cold and calculating Roland versus a teen who just likes fucking Susan and that is driving his decisions more than a good strategy. So again, I don't have evidence. I don't have enough evidence up to this point to say that Roland is actually making the right choices for the right reasons, and he's just not telling the other two, which is legitimate. Like, if you're in charge, you don't need to tell your subordinates your reasoning.
Right.
They just need to listen to you. But it's like, if there is legitimately here, it's like, I just don't trust him. It's like, I don't think you're actually right. I can't trust you. If this were present day Roland, I believe you 100% because you've proven it to me enough to where you will always do the right thing and you're never going to let something like emotion or feelings or whatever
or desire
get in the way of the right decision. You've proven that to me for 3 books now, so I can trust that. But this Roland, can't do it.
And we've had Exhibit A through like F at this point with Roland. Like the whole oh good, you can take him the list. I can go fuck Susan.
Yeah.
We know that's what he was thinking. That's a prime example right there of, dude, you were not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
And my last note here, oh man, that is a hell of a thing for Cuthbert to say about Susan not being an enemy, but it would be easier if she was. I understand why he does, but damn.
Yeah. And I think you see that in like real life too, whether it be like, you're working a job and you got someone that's just a terrible person that's like technically part of your team, but it's like they're the worst person for everything. Or sports teams.
They're a great individual person, but they are terrible at the job.
Yeah.
It's just like,
or they're a terrible I mean, there's all different reasons. You see it in sports too, where there's just someone that's just kind of a cancer to the team and it brings everything down. Like this all is seen in reality too. So I think it's very relatable.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you can really see the Eddie echoes here. He bit his tongue for a long while, longer than Eddie obviously probably has collectively in his entire life. But now he is beyond biting his tongue, and he just sounds so much like Eddie.
Yeah.
And I think the reason he's been able to bite his tongue for so long where Eddie couldn't is because he was trained, by Court getting popped in the head every time he said the wrong thing.
Yep.
He had that most of his life, and that's the only reason he had the discipline to hold it this long. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's done now. It's time to let loose. So subchapter 10, he went up the Cöos road trying not to think. He found that if you left the door open, unexpected and unhelpful things would enter. This afternoon, that did not happen. Confused, miserable, and without fresh ideas in his head, Bert at last turned to Hambry and rode up the high street from end to end, waving and speaking to people who hailed him. They had met a lot of good people here. Some of them he counted as friends and felt as though the common folk of Hambry had adopted them as their own. The more Bert got to know the common folk, the less he suspected they were part of Reimer and Jonas's nasty game. Why else had the good man picked Hambry if not for the perfect cover? There were plenty of folks out today with a lot of hustle and bustle in the prep for Reap Day. Bert felt only a little joy or anticipation for that because it was not his own. it was not, Reap of Gilead that he was used to. This is always going to be something different. Or maybe it was because his mind and heart were so heavy. If this is what growing up was like, he could have skipped the whole experience.
Yeah.
So that's a rough thing to think. When we were talking about how broad this conspiracy was, it seems like Bert's thinking here is that the common folk are not involved, which would make sense with how these things tend to go. Generally, it's not like an entire town conspiracy. A lot of times it's just the power of the town is the conspiracy. So
think of like Under the Dome.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
I just have to make a note here. He's supposed to be calming down, getting rid of the anger and frustration and everything like that, but now he's switching to sadness since he has to watch them prepare for Reap, and it's just going to make him homesick. Also, they've already said that they're going to stay in on Reap Day because they don't like outsiders and everything like that. So it's like, it's just like, fuck.
But it reminds me, like, I don't know if every state has like a big like celebration for like the states becoming a state like we have it in Utah. I'm assuming there's some kind of state holiday that most states have that like celebrates the state in a way.
Sure.
But it's like no matter what, even if that's a similar kind of thing, how different would it be than what you and I are used to here in Utah? Every state's going to probably have something that, the particulars of it all are going to be very different, right? So it's like, cool, it's a celebration of the state, but it's like, oh, well, I miss X, Y, and Z from that I am familiar with from home. Like, there's going to be that aspect too. And also, Cuthbert is the only one that's really seen to be homesick through this story so far.
Yeah, he was looking at Cöos a while back when Susan ran into him. Yeah, and it reminded him of his mother, and he was on the verge of tears.
Yeah, exactly. So he's proven to be the most homesick of the three. Yeah. So, he rode out of town, the ocean at his back, the sun on his face. He thought he'd soon veer off the great road and across the drop to the Bar K, but before he could, here came his old friend Sheemie, leading a mule. His head was down and shoulders slumped. It looked to Bert like he had been walking from the tip of the earth. He called out to him and began the classic greeting, but was cut off as Sheemie looked up, and he saw the dread on the boy's face. His cheeks were pale, his eyes were haunted, and his mouth was trembling. So my only note here, thank God he ran into Bert, the only person who might actually be able to comfort him with this letter and everything that's going on, and potentially maybe help him with Rhea's threat. Like, I feel like even the other two boys, I don't think they would have been right for him. It's kind of like Susan, right? Susan running into Roland after coming from Rhea's was like the perfect person to run into her. I think here, Cuthbert is the perfect person to run into Sheemie in this moment.
100%.
I don't think Alain or Roland could have necessarily done as well for him. So, good stuff.
Absolutely. And you got to read you want me to read the chat?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jack says, what's the difference between Vermont and Vermont? One is well known for dark syrupy juices. The other is a U.S. state. Try to get you both of this Vermont dad joke.
Dad jokes are the worst.
Baraki says, Jack, you've remembered the face of your father.
Although thick viscous oils, thinking about Vermont is it's good stuff.
I can't. You're gross. You're gross. You're just disgusting.
Did you push a button?
I did push a button and no sound came out.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
I'm muted.
Oh,
how dare you?
Maybe the sound. I think. Okay, there we go. I did mute the sound.
Disgusting. There we go. That's what's wrong.
Still acting weird in our headsets. I don't know what's going on.
You guys are gross. Y'all need therapy. You know that? All right. Subchapter 11. Sheemie could have been at the Delgado place 2 hours ago if he had wanted to, but he had been trudging along at a turtle's pace. The letter inside his shirt seeming to drag his every step. He felt awful, and he couldn't think because his thinker was broken. Cuthbert was off his horse in a flash and hurrying to the boy. When he reached him, he put his hands on Sheemie's shoulders and said, "What's wrong? Tell your old pal." He won't laugh, not a bit. At the sound of Arthur Heese, it's in quotes in the book, kind voice, and the sight of concern on his face, Sheemie began to weep. Rhea's strict command that he was not to tell anyone went out of his head. Still sobbing, he recounted everything that had happened that morning. Twice Cuthbert had to ask him to slow down. When Sheemie was finally able to, Cuthbert listened with growing unease. At the end, he produced the envelope from inside his shirt. Cuthbert broke the seal and read what was inside, his eyes growing large.
And I love this because, like, the chapter I had was the subchapter I had was Cuthbert's perspective, and when we jumped to subchapter 11, it changed to Sheemie's, which is why it became Arthur Heath. And like, if you read this whole thing, it's reading from his. I just love it. It's classic King. We haven't seen a lot of it in this book as much as previous books, where we would jump sometimes in the exact same like scene, but we would like jump subchapters and see other people's perspectives. We saw that a lot.
Yeah,
we saw that a lot in like book 3, for instance. So we haven't seen that as much in this book. So I always kind of love when we see that.
It's really cool.
It's good stuff. So the letter feels very much like the ring from Lord of the Rings that seems to weigh the character down. Not the biggest Tolkien reference in this series, but it feels like one nevertheless.
Oh yeah, it's pretty good. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
like the ring physically pulling Frodo down and everything.
Yeah.
Thank God Cuthbert got the letter. Wait, this is a good thing, right?
And I said, yeah, this is a good question. In light of all the anger towards Roland, he is not the worst person to get this letter. Cordelia and Thorin top that list. But man, this could further spark the powder keg that we've got going here. So I also just wanted to test. Okay, that sounds better. Okay. All right. Was it like bad for you when you did your soundbite?
It did.
Okay.
Disgusting. Hey, it sounds good. There.
I also didn't realize I did bump one of my knobs, and that's why it was coming only heavier out of one side of our headphones than the other. Yeah. So that's what ended up happening. So I did solve that. Hey. All right, subchapter 12. And this is our last subchapter.
Yeah.
So Roy Depape was waiting at the Traveler's Rest when Jonas returned in good spirits from his trip to the Barquet. An outsider had finally showed up, or an outrider had finally showed up, Depape told him, and Jonas' spirits rose even more. But Depape did not seem pleased. He told Jonas that the man had gone to Seafront and wanted him there right away. He advised that he would he shouldn't even have a popkin or a drink, as he would want a clear head dealing with this man. Jonas said that he was being free with his advice today, but when Petty brought a drink, he actually turned it away. Depape had a look to him, too pale, and when Sheb began to play his music on the piano, Depape's hand dropped to his gun. So Depape is very much on edge here.
Yeah.
Interesting and disquieting. He asked what was wrong, and Depape said that he didn't know. He asked what the man's name was, and Depape said he hadn't asked, but he had shown the sigil of Farson, the eye. Jonas knew. Why had Farson picked that as a sigil? And he gave some other alternates he could have used. But, so man, Depape is shook. Like this is quite an interesting reaction.
Yeah,
from Depape.
It takes a lot to shake a coffin here. That's my note here. Is just like, wait, why is he shook? Like
yeah,
and we know that it takes a lot. So
yeah,
yeah.
Agamorphy says important letter trope also from Romeo and Juliet.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's a good call.
True.
So I've been thinking for probably the last year or so that I want to buy one of the collections of Shakespeare and read through it. I haven't read a lot of that since high school. It's a lot of good stuff in Shakespeare.
I have not read a single Shakespeare, not a word of Shakespeare since high school. I will be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of good story there. And it's honestly, how much of it did you actually get exposed to in high school? There's a handful, but it's usually always the same few ones. So I don't know. I've been thinking about that for about a year. The problem is it's all what do you call it? Not copyrighted, public domain.
Public domain.
So the problem is that it's usually free downloads or very cheap, like $1. And the problem with those, a lot of times they aren't divided up into chapters where you can go and click through, and they're just almost like they just loaded a PDF onto Kindle or whatever. So I always hate that when I'm trying to find an older something. It's because there's never it's I will even pay. I don't care if it's public domain. If you do the work to outline it, get it to where I can have chapters and skip around and stuff, I will pay a full price for that. But I don't know. That's one of the things that's stopping me. Also, the eye. Do folks here know about the Crimson King? Because I assume that's the sigil, right? It's the same.
It says the eye.
The eye, yeah.
That's what Farson uses.
But that's what dawned on me until I don't think I've ever thought about it until just now. Did the people of this world right here know about the Crimson King? Or is the Crimson King a thing that becomes revealed later? Your average person, maybe the gunslingers know a little bit more or whatever, but it's
that's what I was thinking about. Is I was the gunslingers know.
Yeah, but
they absolutely know about him and everything like that. So
yeah, it's.
But we've seen.
Is he more of
we've seen the Crimson King reference before. Bango Skank talks about him. So
yeah,
it's that's not Magus. That's in New York.
That's
and
the
everything.
present. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it's interesting.
But I wonder if he's more of a veiled threat, and then when the world moves on entirely, he becomes more of an out there. I mean, didn't we have somebody email not too long ago with the theory that maybe Farson turns into the Crimson King?
Oh,
I mean that would. I mean, this would actually feed into that
it would?
Because the eye.
Look, there's him using that.
I mean,
sigil.
I still say it's flag, but I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Farson is Flag, not the Crimson King.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
to clarify.
Exactly. So, but if Farson became the Crimson King, that would mean that Farson and Flag are not the same person, which means the King's a liar. Jonas finished his water and said he would go and find out himself. Depape called him as he reached the Batwing doors. I don't know why Batman doesn't have Batwing doors in the Batcave. It seems like this should be the thing.
What are wing doors?
He said the man looked like other people, and Jonas asked what he meant, and he said he didn't know. And he said that they only talked for 5 minutes, but at one point he looked like the old man that he had shot in Ritzy, and a little later he looked like his own paw, and then he looked like himself again. Jonas asked how, and Depape said he couldn't, or he'd find out soon enough. Jonas asked if it was Farson himself, and Depape said no. Farson was a big man, and this man was Clay's height or less, and stayed the same height no matter what form he looked. Then he said the laugh was like a dead person, and Jonas asked what he meant, and Depape again had no answers. So
End of subchapter.
Yeah, Depape's not very helpful here.
No.
He's shook, and that might be part of it. But it seems like a lot of his observations are very one-line observations that he can't really expound upon, and that's, I think, probably frustrating for Jonas.
Part of it also is that he just doesn't want to. Like, who the fuck wants to talk about stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. But I think for Jonas, that'd be really frustrating, right?
Absolutely.
It's like every question
so
you ask, the person's like, I don't know, or I don't know how to explain it. I
didn't look.
Yeah, or I didn't answer.
It's like the girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife thing. It's like the husband goes out with the guys. Oh yeah, so and so broke up, or so and so's getting divorced. What happened? I don't know. I didn't ask. The frustration that's there. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So my note, Flag, all caps there.
Yep.
Sorry, I know I assume this virtually about anyone who some of you people would call villains.
They are.
But
oh my god.
But Flag has literally been called the man of many faces, and laughing like the dead also is very much Flag. Also, just shaking a bad dude like Depape is one that Flag would be capable of.
Absolutely.
And there's very few characters in King's universe that are capable of shaking some of the hardest men, and Flag's definitely one of them. I thought I had a note about it, but I don't, or actually maybe yes, never mind. It's in the spoiler section. It's not super spoilery, but I'll save it for there.
Still enough to throw it there. I just wanted to throw a note here on the whole Flag discussion and everything like that. Also, changing to people that would haunt someone. Like, we heard about Depape's dad not being the best person, and then the man he murdered in Ritzy and everything.
Yeah.
Dude, that's right up his alley.
Oh, yeah.
That is right up Flag's alley to change into someone like that.
Doesn't he use Rita for Larry at one point in one of the dreams?
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, he's very much about like, oh, what baggage do you have? Let me rifle through your brain real quick. And
Hang on. Oh, this is a juicy one.
He and Pennywise share that. I mean, Pennywise more looks for like, what scares you. Flag's like, oh, what trauma do you have that I can use here? So yeah, that is it. We do have the spoiler section in a second, but I also wanted to update everyone on the where we're at percentage wise.
Yeah.
So the whole book, we are now at the end of this episode. We are now at 60% of the way through the book. Again, I've cut out like the shit they added at the end.
Right.
So that is literally the end of the story. We're 60% of the way there.
All right.
Roland's story, because the way this is all broken down, we have Roland's story, then we're gonna have a little bit more at the end. Roland's story, we are 66% of the way through.
Oh.
So we are nearing 70% mark for Roland's story, which is crazy.
Jack throws a question in the chat. I wonder if they would say that Rhea is the bride of the Crimson King, similar to how we say people have to say that witches are married to the devil.
Yeah, and I think that would just go to my question of like, do your average person of like this time period, do they know about the Crimson King in that way? Because if so, then yeah, probably.
Can we save this discussion and put it in the spoiler? Because I have something to say that's spoilers. I've been holding on to it.
Yeah, let's
go to the spoilers.
Where is my spoiler? Oh, there it is. I thought I had an alarm-looking thing, but let's go ahead and go to it here.
Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead.
Love it.
All right, and then
yeah. So the thing with the
so we are in spoiler section now. If you've not finished the series, you want to turn the episode off, maybe come back to it after you finish the series. But now we are talking spoiler sections. It is the very little tiny end of the episode here, but go ahead.
I mean, I just finished book 7, so that's a large part with talks about the Crimson King. He has a kingdom, It's been there for hundreds of years. It's not something new. It's just recently he went mad. So it's very possible that people have heard of this distant land and its ruler and everything like that. And everything like that.
But do they see him as this almost god level demon, devil, not even demon, but like a devil, Satan level?
I mean, how much does Calibran Sturgis know about the Crimson King? And they're a lot closer.
Yes.
They barely mention him in Wolves of the Kala at all.
Yeah.
But they do know of him.
Yeah.
I doubt that anyone in Magus knows who the fuck Crimson King is.
Yeah, I feel like that might be something more like he becomes more revealed after the fall of everything. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I would argue the other way. I don't think so, because lines of communication and everything collapse then. So then you're having less communication. Calibran, Sturgis, and Magus, dude, they're different planets at that point.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening in Magus would not be happening would not be known about in Calibran, Sturgis, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So and the Red King's, the Crimson King's land and everything is far beyond Calibran, Sturgis. So I don't think that Magus would ever know about the Crimson King at all.
Yeah. And then my only spoiler note, I think Depape, I know Depape thinks Flag, if this person who arrived is Flag, isn't Farson because because Farson's a taller person. Mm-hmm. All of this I would say is nonsense because Depape wouldn't know this, but we know that Flag's ability to transform has nothing to do with size. In fact, we've seen him go as small as a crow throughout different books, not necessarily this series, but it's like his transformation powers, he's not limited where it's like, oh, I can only be the exact same height and weight of what I am now. Now, of course, the perfect way to trick someone into thinking, oh, this isn't Farson, is you always stay the same height when you're with that person.
Flag is cunning enough to do something
exactly. But again, because I do think he is Farson, but it's like you're not going to let people know that, right? You don't want, because how much different are they going to treat you? It's like the whole undercover boss thing, right? It's like make sure people don't realize that they're talking.
This is Farson's lieutenant. This isn't Farson himself, so I can speak a little bit more freely.
Yeah.
But really, it's Farson.
Yeah. And also we knew that Latigo's one that's been mentioned about one that they might be connecting with. Doesn't seem like this is Latigo. I think they're all kind of familiar with him.
Yes.
So the fact that he doesn't know who this person is.
Latigo hired them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the fact he doesn't know it's not Latigo, so somebody else has shown up here, and all the signs point to this is Flag. So
little preview for next time.
Yeah, happy days. Happy days. Let's do the happy dance for Randall Flag. No. Let's go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick. If you want to subscribe to us, you can find us on any podcasting service of your choice. You can stream us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, all those fun places. If you want to join us for the live streams, like a number of people did here, you could do it over here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. And thanks everyone that did join us. Great to have you guys part of the conversation, whether it be emojis, dad jokes, or just input into the conversation. We love it all. You guys are awesome. If you want to find the show notes, you can do that over at darktowerpalaver.com. March Insanity starts on March 1st, which we don't have an episode. Actually, our episode is March 1st, isn't it?
It is March 1st.
Okay, so technically you're going to have a couple hours to vote before our episode starts, but either way, that's a first. I don't think we've done March Insanity ever when we had an episode on March 1st, so that's new. But this is our last one. We can fully warn you, starting on March 1st, the March Insanity 2 March Insanity polls start. You can find it over there at darktowerpalaver.com/March Insanity. If you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. And then if you want to contact the show and send us some Ermot haikus, Peter can let you know how to do that.
No, don't do that. Email us at show@darktowerpalaver.com. You can also follow us on Threads and Instagram. It's Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. And then we're on Blue Sky. It's at darktowerpalaver.bsky.social. And then we still have our Twitter. It's at darktowerpod. That's at darktowerpod. Facebook.com/darktowerpalaver is where you can find us there. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/users/darktowerpalaver.
Indeed, and again, we'll be back in a fortnight, which is March 1st, and we will be back into the Roundtable realm, and then we're back onto our normal cadence here, Roundtable Book Club. I do believe March has 3 episodes, and I do believe that because of the long hangover that we had here, a layover without any book clubs, I think we're going to do the 2 book clubs for that month. Okay. So, know that that's coming. I mean, of course, unless we got some kind of crazy Mike Flanagan news. That would, of course, change everything. But for right now, the plan is 2 book clubs in March, and we will sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
Oi.
All right, everyone in the chat, thank you guys for joining us. You guys are awesome. We'll be back in a few minutes for Geekery Abides if you listen over there. We're talking about Captain America 4, and then otherwise, though, we'll be back in a fortnight for, I guess we'll be kicking off March Insanity. I mean, there'll be voting only be a few hours in, so we can't really talk much about it. But, yeah, we'll see whatever. There's probably been some news. The monkey, we'll both see the monkey by then.
That's going to be a big thing that we're going to talk about is the monkey.
Also, I will tease, there has been, I know this isn't for the podcast, folks, there has been potentially a revelation as to why the monkey was changed. So we'll talk about that on the next episode.
All right.
So, all right. See you guys.
Bye.